All right. I love it. Okay. End of an era. My goodness.
Do we have to have these on right now?
Yeah, I guess. What is the rule? If you don't wear yours, I won't wear mine. I'm in a booth.
We're in shields.
I'm shielded.
What the law say?
Somebody needs to tell us that before I take mine off.
I think that it made arrangements
That
for
is-
speakers to take their masks off.
Okay.
The law say you have to have
Oh, wait, no, you got to upset.
Oh,
on. So how was your day?
Even when we're speaking, we have to have them on.
How was your day?
all right.
How was your day?
It's been pretty good. I went and got a massage. It makes me so sad. That explains Is this smoking? I thought you handed cooking. We better get our act together.
Well, I didn't remember where I sat either. I'm glad we.
Once they got this concoction.
That's right.
here, Is James coming?
James is not coming.
Okay. That's good.
That's the only reason I'm sitting right here.
Okay, that's why you had me thrown out.
I don't know how to use this thing.
It just would have been by itself.
What they said about the mask?
Spoken. Ma'am, I don't know anything about this.
I think I'm on. I'm not sure they go upstairs.
I don't know how to work this thing. Any of it.
Oh, you don't have to.
I don't. They just stay there.
Well, some, whoever's second emotion person, but if you call it, so you don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
And I gotta go get some more comments from those people about the rest, so don't start until I come.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
It's not on the list? On that? Oh, that's on ours?
Yeah.
I said she didn't.
Did he say he wanted to break?
I would have thought you didn't. I didn't know you were-
I heard.
How you doing? I didn't have time to stop for sentence. Is that your seat?
No. I'm messing with
I know. I know.
Should we wait until we get down there to it, or should we suspend the rule like everybody else, or what?
Well, he's not gonna come down.
Who are?
He said he was gonna watch from upstairs.
Oh, really? Okay. Cool. Then we'll just leave it like that.
Now, if he comes down, I'll suspend the rule.
Okay, we're good.
Is Grayson coming?
It's all the plastic.
Is Councilman Butcher gonna make it?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize.
Is he here?
I don't think he's ill. He said he had something scheduled to get this.
It looks like a lot. Because I still have to read the ones that are not here. And it's several pages.
Do we have to read the ones that are not here?
If you're implying that what they say doesn't matter, you don't want to hear, you're probably talking to the wrong one.
I'm not implying that, but I thought when we had in-person meetings, we didn't read comments. That's just a question.
I think that we actually put it in the, in today's packet that we would accept it.
Okay.
I mean, because we're limited on how many people can be in here.
Sure, that makes sense. Only inquiring. What was the layout? Is this
17, 18, I think there's 2 more coming.
Oh, it's all right. That's it.
21.
Thought it was about 100.
Do you have Commissioner Atkins' comment? I've got this on my desk. I don't know why.
So 22, so we'll probably be at 24.
I don't know if this
Oh.
Okay, let me see if I can find some.
This meeting of the Shreveport City Council is now called to order. Pastor Brown will give the invocation, and Councilman Nicholson, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Let us pray. Father God, we thank and praise you for this day. This is a day you have made, and we rejoice and be glad about it. We thank you, Father, for this day, July 28th. We thank you, Lord God. Everything be done decent and order. We pray for the president, the governor, the mayor, House of Representatives, the city councilmen, all who's in authority. We lift them up in the name of Jesus, Father. And we thank you now that the blood of Jesus Christ is over this meeting. And everything is done to your glory, your honor, your reverence. In Jesus' name we pray. When all agree in prayer, let us say amen.
Amen. Please face the flag and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Present.
Here.
Present.
Councilman Butcher, Councilman Floyd, Councilman Green,
I'm here.
and Councilman Bowles.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Madam Chair.
The administrative conference of City Council meeting from July 14th. I have a motion by Councilman Green. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Bowman. I'll call for the vote. But I did it.
I got yours as yes.
Huh?
I got yours yes. I have yours yes.
Okay.
Your, votes are registered under Councilman Fleury's name?
Oh, is that gonna be okay?
No, I got you.
So you need me to move, or did you
No.
push it?
She got it. She got
Okay,
it.
thank you. All right. Does any city council member have any awards, recognitions, or distinguished guests today?
I don't have any guests, but I need to talk to Mr. Patrick.
The chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Yeah, is Patrick here?
Mr. Furlong. Or he must have stepped out. I saw him not too long ago.
Madam Chair, while we wait for Mr. Furlong, I would like to recognize Mr. Tom Arsenault, my predecessor as a councilman for District C and a distinguished member of the bar. And after Mr. Furlong speaks, I guess we'll hear from Mr. Arsenault.
Hey, Patrick, listen, there's one of my constituents, Ms. Aurella Brazil, who lives at 4396 Worth Circle. She said 3 years ago when the consent decree work was going on, that they destroyed her sprinkler system, and they've been telling her, she's talked to a guy by the name, I think, Robert Marvin, and he's been promising her that they would take care of it, and it's still not done. And again, her phone number is 208-0562.
Okay, we'll take care of it.
Aurella Brazil.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Also, Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I'd just like to make this announcement. On Sunday, I'd just like for you all to wish me a happy anniversary. I've been serving as pastor of Union Mission Baptist Church for 43 years. Thank you.
Congratulations, that's quite an accomplishment. And I recognize Councilman Nicholson.
Mr. Arsenault, if you'd like to approach and offer remarks about Mr. Thompson, we very much appreciate your being present here today to do that.
Thank you very much. It's, it might be fitting that Arthur's not here.
He's upstairs watching.
Well, good, good. Well, then, there was a city council in 1985. Those members were Hillary Huckabee, Dee Peterson, myself, Bill Bush, John Scotto, Joe Shine, and Larry Ferdinand. We made a lot of decisions during the time that we served on the council. Certainly, one of the very best decisions that we ever made was to appoint Arthur G. Thompson as the clerk of council. And he has served admirably for 35 years since that time. It's kind of hard to acknowledge that as I stand up here, that was 35 years ago. But he is knowledgeable, he is calm, he is even-handed, he is reliable, he is bright. He has a way of letting a lot of people know what the other perspectives of other people are so that they understand them better. He stayed in the background but was able to influence legislation for the better by his technical skills. He mentored this young man to learn about things that I didn't know about and to understand perspectives that I did not have before I served with Arthur Thompson. So I'm here today to praise Arthur, to wish him well in his retirement, and to thank him personally. It is very rare to be able to be in the presence of someone who has humble greatness. But that's how I would describe my friend, Arthur Thompson, and I thank him for his service.
Thank you, Mr. Arsenault.
Thank you.
I will say, I could not agree more with the sentiments Mr. Arsenault has expressed. It has been a great privilege for me over the past year and a half to serve as a member of the council with Mr. Thompson. I know that every member feels the same way. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're here. Thank you. Any other council members?
Yes. Did I see past CAO Brian Crawford? I thought I saw Brian. I could be wrong. I thought I saw Brian. I'm sorry.
Also former city attorney.
City Attorney Will Bradford. Did you have a word that you wanted to say?
Yes, sir.
on my
Same
behalf?
topic with Mr. Thompson. Madam Vice Chairman, members of the council, mayor, staff, I appreciate the opportunity to come speak today about a good friend, Art Thompson. You know, I had the opportunity to serve as city attorney for 4 years here, and it was one of the most honoring and humbling things that I could have possibly done. And the person who made it all that much better for me was the person right down the hall from that office, which was Art Thompson, who was Art Thompson. Art took me in and made sure to guide me. I think it's the best way that he could, sometimes very hands-off and sometimes very hands-on. He did a good job of not telling me where the answer was, what the answer was, but where the answer could be found. And his knowledge in 35 years anywhere, I think, speaks volumes to his character and to his abilities, both as a servant to the city of Shreveport, but also as just as a gentleman in his craft. And you know, I wish him well in his retirement. I know that he'll spend many a days with his lovely wife. And finally, she may allow him to eat some fried chicken at home. If you know, he doesn't get that often, so we'd always throw him a sneak party out here. I'm telling on you, Art. But I do wish him the very best, and it was an honor to serve with him. And I know that the council will be in good shoes, whomever is selected after him, and I know that he will continue to be a resource for our community. So God bless you and Godspeed. Thank you all so much.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, is Mr. Furlong still here? Or did he step out?
Is Mr. Furlong still in the room?
I think he stepped out.
Okay. I'm just trying to catch him later.
Mayor Perkins, do you have any awards, recognitions, or guests today?
I do. As you all are aware, our city attorney, Makisha Creel, and director Barbara Featherstone are both moving on to new opportunities. I want to thank each of them for their service and let the council know that we are working with them for the smoothest transition possible. Thank you so much for what you've given to the city of Shreveport. Mr. Featherstone here. Yeah, thank you so much for what you've given to the city of Shreveport. All your energy and effort is greatly appreciated. So thank you. Next, I want to mention at the meeting earlier, I mentioned at the meeting earlier this month, the city of Shreveport has been selected as the recipient of Kansas Smart Thermometers. We will receive 8,000 thermometers at no cost. In order to receive this donation, we need to have an approved distribution plan. We have developed a plan and hope to distribute the thermometer soon. Again, I'm asking you to please support the legislation regarding this particular donation. Last week, Governor Edwards signed orders extending Phase 2 and the statewide mask mandate. As our cases continue to climb, I urge citizens to adhere to the order for the safety of all of our citizens during this time of crisis. The census count is still underway, and we need to make sure Shreveport is counted. Anyone who still needs to complete the census can call 844-330-2020, 844-330-2020. Also would like to acknowledge the firefighters who put out a blaze yesterday and saved 2 lives. The personnel who rescued the 2 victims are Captain Alan Jeffrey, Engineer Brandon Barber. Chief Wolverton, are you here? Is Chief Wolverton in the audience? Yes. Oh, okay. All right. You want to come and stand on their behalf and say a few words after I finish naming them? Kind of talk about the incident. Firefighter Alexio Thomas, Captain David Burden, Engineer Peter Bolton, Firefighter Colt Goodwin, Fire Engineer Deedrick Clark, Firefighter Divine Abram, Fire Engineer David Comer, and Firefighter Dalton Fowler, and EMS Officer Clarence Reese.
Yesterday, right around after 2 o'clock, the fire came in at a one-story wood structure around Hollywood and Linwood. Crews arrived on scene very quickly. We had early reports that there was a gentleman inside, and we were able to confirm there were 2. They were able to make quick entry, a search, get both the gentlemen out. We had paramedics outside waiting on them to receive them. As soon as they did, they started advanced life support skills on them, and they were able to revive both of them, and both of them in the hospital now recovering. Just want to say thank you. I had several reach out to me. Ms. Councilwoman Taylor reached out to me last night. Thank you for your prayers. We had a firefighter also injured at that fire. He's recovering well and doing well. One thing she said, she recognized their acts, and And I told her, I said, well, they're my heroes. They perform well every day, put their life on the line every day. They never ask who it is, whose house they're going into. They go in to do their job, and they do it well. And they're worthy of recognition, and we'll be recognizing them formally at some point in the future so that you have the opportunity to meet all of them also. Thank you, Mayor.
Chief, can you elaborate on the fire and smoke detector program that we have for any,
Yes.
if there's any seniors
Yes,
or
this-
any disabled citizens in our community, or anybody who needs a fire detector? You can talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Mayor. The home did not have a working smoke detector, so we do have a free smoke detector giveaway program in the state. In the city, we have we were having a lot of campaigns prior to COVID. Since COVID came about, those have been relaxed. We are still putting up smoke detectors. If you call our Fire Prevention Bureau at 673-6740, we'll get your name on the list, and we will send a company by to install a smoke detector in your home if you need one. Any citizen in the city of Shreveport. So we want to encourage that. We're going to begin trying to start up our campaigns again, try to do it as safely as possible as we can, with protecting ourselves and also our citizens that we will be knocking on doors. So we're going to try to start those again, and myself and Ben were just talking about, trying to get things back to normal. This is part of that process in our city, because this is a life-saving program. Early detection is the key for survival in a house fire. Things happen real quick. Houses are designed now where they begin to ignite very quickly in rapid fire progression. So early detection is the key, especially, on certain times of the day at night, things like that when you're asleep, and making sure you get woke up and get out. So it's a good program, and we try to encourage that and continue to do that.
Thanks, Chief. Finally, I would like to introduce Joe Darlington from Burns and McDonnell, who will provide an update on our consent decree efforts at this time.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you today. We should have a PowerPoint presentation that gets up on the screen in a moment here. I am here. Again, my name is Joe Darlington. I'm the program manager with Burns and McDonnell, provide an update on the consent decree program. This will be the second update that we're providing to you all this year. We were previously before you in April, and our plan going forward is to be in front of you about every 3 months to provide an update. Today, we're going to talk about a handful of items. We'll walk through the current status of the consent decree and then some of the projects that we're supporting management and delivery of. We'll talk about some of the capital improvement planning efforts that we're undergoing to evaluate and identify projects that will be done in the next several years. And then the last half of our presentation is really going to be focused on some of our public communications and our constituent issue resolution efforts, as well as an update on some of our payment procedures related to processing payments to contractors. Okay, so first, just to touch base on the consent decree. Again, the consent decree, we've talked about this in the past. You've seen this slide before. The consent decree represents a legal settlement between the city of Shreveport and the federal government that obligates the city to complete repairs and improvements to its sanitary sewer system over a 12-year period. The consent decree was signed in May of 2014, and it split the city up into 5 different phases. Each phase is a different geographical area of the city, and it requires that improvements in all 5 of those phases be done in the first 9 years of the program. The city is then required to go back and look at phases 1, 2, 3 again in years 8 through 12 and address new defects that are observed in those areas. The city is also required to complete capacity improvements to improve the conveyance ability of the system, and those improvements need to be done by the end of the 12-year period. So looking at this just on a time perspective, the city is approximately 6 years into the program, about 50% done with the schedule. There was a report that we supported the city in developing that covers the activities that were completed in year 6 of the program, and that report is available on the Clean Water Shreveport website. The consent decree program does identify different milestones and activities that need to be completed, and assigns deadlines to those activities. It also assigns stipulated penalties that are associated with failure to comply by those deadlines. And what's presented on the screen are deadlines associated with failure to meet the construction deadlines. So we'll switch and talk a little bit about the status of the efforts towards complying with the consent decree. So this slide presents just a high-level summary of each of the 5 phases. And you can think about the activities that are undergone to address each phase really are split up into 3 different buckets. The first is an investigation activity where the city hires contractors to go out and inspect the sewers. Data is collected and then plans identifying improvements within that phase are developed. The second main activity is design, and the city hires design engineers to put together contract documents to address the improvements that need to be made. And the third stage really is construction, where the city hires a contractor or a set of contractors to construct the improvements. So we'll look at each of the phases in a little bit detail. We'll look first at phase 1 and 2. Phase 1 and 2 have been under construction. There were 30 projects in phase 1, and as of late last week, the last project reached final completion, and so we have final completion that's been achieved on all of the phase 1 projects. In phase 2, there were 17 construction projects identified and have been delivered. 16 of those have reached functional completion. 8 of them have reached final completion. Functional completion refers to when the underground infrastructure work associated with the contract is completed. Final completion really covers restoration and addressing of deficiencies. In phases 3, 4, and 5, you'll recall from our summary slide, the activities undergone in these phases really have been focused on investigation and design. So in phase 3, design packages have been developed for 14 projects. One of those projects has started construction and has reached functional completion. In phase 4, the investigation activities have been completed, and the planning document, known as the Remediation Measures Plan, was developed earlier this year and submitted to EPA in March. The investigation activities for phase 5 are approximately 50% complete. So it's important to recognize that any remaining activities on phase 3, 4, and 5 are currently on hold. This is really due to 2 main reasons. One is that the hydraulic model that's been developed to plan the projects in these phases needs to be updated. And the second reason is that the city's limited financial resources drive the need to complete other high priority projects. So we'll talk about that. In April, we presented to you and we talked about the portfolio of projects that were identified at the start of this year. We refer to that portfolio as the critical infrastructure project portfolio. That's a set of projects that were identified to address known facility and operational issues within the city's water and sewer utility. And this set of projects really represents a targeted approach to address issues that have occurred in the system that need to be addressed to continue providing reliable utility service. And it's a bit of a shift away from another massive investment in underground infrastructure. The total value of this portfolio is approximately $88 million. It's being funded by capital funding that the city had previously secured. The council may recall a couple of months ago approving a budget amendment to shift funds from a previous general ledger account to a newly established account, and that account is going to be used to track expenditures associated with the sewer projects that are part of this portfolio. So this slide presents a list of each of the critical infrastructure projects. There's 19 total projects. You can also see the status of each project. We manage these projects through a stage gate delivery process that provides opportunity for city staff to be involved at key milestones with each project, and you can see the status of each stage or gate listed here. Since late January, when these projects were identified and selected, 16 of the projects have advanced through the stage gate process. 3 of the projects have been delivered and submitted over to city purchasing for advertising, and 4 of the projects have advanced to construction. So we've talked now about the projects that were previously selected and have been undergoing design and construction activities. want to provide a brief glimpse into some of the planning efforts that we're undertaking to identify and select additional projects that we anticipate will be constructed in 2021 and 2022. This is a capital planning exercise that's really focused on targeting and addressing known problem areas that are occurring within the system. There's really, you can think about 4 main categories that we're looking to address. The first 3 are observed pipe collapses that have occurred within the system, recurring sanitary sewer overflows, and then pump stations that are on bypass. Those 3 categories of information we've gained and identified through collaborating with the city's water and sewer department based on operational records that have been provided. And then the 4th category of information really involves looking at the tremendous amount of data that was previously collected during the investigation and assessment activities, and identifying locations within the system that have high priority condition issues that need to be addressed. And so we've identified approximately 150 locations throughout the city, mainly focused in the phase 3, 4, and 5 areas. We're looking at that data currently, and we're evaluating it along with city operational records to confirm and identify a targeted scope of repair for those locations. So we have a couple of different data sets and tools that we are using to support this activity. This is an application that our team has built and is using that pulls in operational records from the water and sewer department. This particular data set shows sewer backups and sewer overflows and some other issues that have occurred and been documented. We're using this data along with a data set that shows the locations of sanitary sewer overflows that have been reported by the city. Both of these data sets are being used to develop targeted repair packages. The other thing that we're using, this application presents this slide presents an application that's been developed to track progress and updates to the city's hydraulic model. In April, we talked about the work efforts that we are undertaking to update and calibrate the city's model. In the last several months, we have been refining the model based on field calibration data that's been collected, field verification data that's been collected. We've also been confirming the scope and the plan for going out to address and collect additional flow meter data. So we've identified approximately 160 flow meter locations that we plan to get installed and collect data this fall and in the spring of 2021. There were approximately 50 flow meter locations that were used to calibrate the model when it was initially constructed in 2012. And so as that data continues to be gathered and collected, the model will continue to be used to support our capital planning activities. The model, again, is primarily used to identify areas in the system that have capacity restrictions, as well as to evaluate projects that are planned to address sanitary sewer overflows in the system. Okay, so I'm going to break. I'm going to ask Drayden Dunn, our program communications director, to come up and provide an update on some of our communication efforts.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Council, Mayor Perkins, and Administration. I'm going to give a brief update about the communications portion as well as issue resolution with the consent decree program. Happy to announce that we have updated and relaunched the website for Clean Water Shreveport at cleanwatershreveport.com. I encourage the public to definitely visit it out. Visit the website and look at the updates. Specifically, we've updated just general information that can really break it down for the public to understand as far as the consent decree, as well as FAQs updates that we get plenty of information requests, whether it's through email or calling our hotline. So we've updated that as well. It also gives us the ability to increase the functionality and accessibility of the website by having embed videos, interactive dashboards, and of course our ArcGIS geospatial tools, which are of course also active now. On specifically constituent issues, you can go to our ArcGIS website, which is embedded within Clean Water Shreveport, and you can see where constituent issues congregate, issue types, and how we're addressing them. You also can see project locations, and we spoke a little bit about this last time we was here in April, but you can see project locations, past project locations, current project locations, and also future project locations as well. The good news is we're able to integrate this with reporting constituent issues, which is 100% important perceptionally, and of course, making sure that we put back the residents' property properly. So now you can actually go in the future in social media and report these issues. And right now we have a website form that we really encourage everyone to use. It allows us to centralize the locations of all the issues. Also, it allows us to use geospatial tools to report it through a Power BI system as well. I'm going to go to the next slide. And this is some of the information that we have updated. We have consent decree overall issues. Consent decree overall information, as well as our spring 2020 report and specific information for the critical priority infrastructure projects, which Joe just covered. Now I want to get over to constituent issue resolution and really visit this and kind of talk to the public as well as the council about how we approach issues that are related to the consent decree and also sewer issues that are non-related to the consent decree. So first, anytime we get an issue, which you can get an issue through email, phone call, the web form that I just mentioned, a lot of different ways. What we do is we centralize it within Zoho. Zoho is basically an application that allows us to create issue resolution tickets, assign them to a particular team or field, investigate, gather pictures and data, keep it in one place, as well as record conversations with the constituents, etc. It allows us to really gather historical data. That way, if an issue comes up that may have been from the past, from phase 1, phase 2, or a brand new issue, we can access all of the information and address it accordingly. So the first part of our process is reporting, of course, which I just covered. Once we get in the issue, we research this issue. I mean, we get a lot of information based on issues that are not related to the consent decree on heavy construction around Shreveport, and not all the times is that it's related to consent decree projects. However, we like to take that information and get it over to the proper field or proper channel so we can help the constituents. This includes working with Louisiana One Call, which is the 811 system, where anytime you have excavation or dig locations, they have to report this to the state. This allows us to kind of pinpoint on the map where it's located, who's doing the digging, what's the contractor, and why are they doing this construction. When it's not related to the consent decree, we're able to kind of pinpoint that, get that back over to the city or the constituent or the council, and they can address it accordingly. We also use ArcGIS, as I mentioned before, to tie in with CityWorks. Of course, a lot of the construction and projects that the city of Shreveport is responsible for lives in the CityWorks application. We've overlaid it geospatially with ArcGIS, so it allows us to identify where projects are going on that are not consent decree related, but they are with the city of Shreveport. The last tool that we use as well is Zoho Desk, which again has a backlog of information from past projects and capital improvement programs that came before the transition. Once we identify if it's consent decree related or not, we then investigate it. We dispatch a public information officer to take pictures of the issue, as well as of the public information officers. We get the pictures with them, and then we go to the site. We investigate the site. We figure out who's the culprit, what contractor, why is it an SSO, why wasn't restoration completed, pretty much what court the ball is in. After that, we collaborate with the contractors, and sometimes it's through issuing warranty forms, NCNs, communications, meetings, etc., to make sure that the contractor can go back and address it. At that time, we resolve. Around the collaboration time is where we follow up with the constituent. And if you look at the chart on the right, this is our first constituent follow-up metric that we have. 88% of the time, we respond to the constituent with information about the issue within the first 24 hours. 92% of the time, we're responding within 48 hours. So this metric is extremely important because when you make a call or you have an email and it gets to our team, we want to make sure that we're responding to it and really a proactive and a quick way. The average follow-up time when the constituent reaches out to the clean water team is 8.3 hours, which is usually the same business day. And this right here is a breakdown of our constituent issues broken down by council district. Of course, districts A and B stand out as well as C, and that's partly because phase 1 and phase 2 projects occurred in those areas. Specifically, phase 2, which is the largest phase out of all phase, have the most issues because we had the most projects and the most work. Till this day, since the transition, we've had over 700 constituent issues resolved. And if you look at the line graph below, you can see that our trend is trending down for issues that are reported and created. However, we are resolving issues more than that issues are being reported to us. A lot of times it doesn't leave the program team. By the time it gets to an administration or city council level, at that time, that just means that the constituent wants to kind of alert. They may not have another way of reporting it to us, or they may not have the knowledge of that. So 90% of the time, issues are internal within the program team and getting solved. That's what I have. Joe, if you want to come and talk about contract payment. Thank you.
Before you go, Mr. Dunn.
Sure.
I just had one question about, so do you keep a record of tracking of the contractors that we're having issues with?
Most
As far as
definitely.
accountability? So we could actually get that if we request it
Most
from
definitely.
you?
So we use Zoho Analytics. Zoho Analytics ties into our Zoho Desk application. We're able to break down our issues by project area, by contractor, as well as issue category. We can see that we can have mostly SSOs or maybe restorations of problems, specifically for fencing, or maybe it's facade or grading work. So we have those, and we report those on a bi-weekly basis to the engineering and water department.
So our engineering department knows if there are specific contractors that we're having
100%.
repeated issues with.
For sure. And usually with the phases and the projects, you usually have the prime contractor, right? So the prime contractor has a project. So any project that may live in your district, which is SH1 or SH2 or QB1, these areas, the issues that are associated with these areas are with the prime contractor. So it's very easy to pinpoint. I think the harder part sometimes is pinpointing the subcontractors, but we do a good job identifying what sub is a part of it within the prime, and then rolling that data out on a bi-weekly basis to the engineering and water department.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Nicholson.
Mr. Dunn, good afternoon.
Oh, hey.
To follow up on the chair's question, I have had several constituents over the past 18 months, and of course that's before you were involved or Burns McDonald was involved in large part, who have had what I can only describe as gross errors committed and by contractors. They've lined pipes and then not perforated the lining so that the lateral can get back into the main. I assume that we are, as you've just said, tracking errors of that nature, and that there is a process for warning and then debarring contractors or subs who repeatedly make those problems. I just don't understand how
That's a great
how that
question, and
happens.
what Joe's about to speak on is gonna pretty much cover those things.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll speak to that right away, Councilman. That's an issue which we are aware of, that we have received various reports of where service laterals have not been reconnected to the mainline sewer. And so we've been looking into that issue actively for the past several months, really. We've identified a few different consistencies that have occurred. To kind of step through the process, the investigation and activity and assessment activity that I spoke about previously is when the city investigated the sewers and tried to determine what the condition of those sewers. That typically involved putting a camera into the pipe and performing what's called a CCTV video inspection. That allows you to determine the service laterals that exist. Okay, a lot of the current projects that are going on, that information was collected back in 2015 and 2016. We have found that in situations where service laterals have not been reconnected, it typically involves, very commonly involves, situations where that CCTV video was not able to be captured for various reasons. A pipe was collapsed or there was a blockage, and so it prevented capture of that video. Projects were planned, they were designed, they moved forward with a set of assumptions that we're finding were not correct. The second thing that we're finding is that the construction method that was used to make the repairs to the sewers typically is what's called pipe bursting, which involves actually pulling a brand new pipe into the pipe and breaking up the old pipe and you now have a new pipe, the services now need to be cut in and reconnected from the outside. The contractor typically goes in and they do a CCTV video after the fact to inspect those sewers, but because they pulled a new pipe in, there's no ability to see the service lateral that they weren't able to reconnect. And so those are the issues that we're seeing, that we're evaluating. We have identified different areas within the system where those things have happened, and we're planning to work with the city to do a proactive approach to go out and do some confirmation testing to make sure that there's not issues that crop up that we're not aware of yet. But that's really what we've looked into and we've evaluated.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll add that a further concern, and again, this may relate more to your predecessor firm than your organization, but constituents have told me that they, and I mean, to explain to the public, when a lateral is not connected to the main, that means that raw sewage is flowing into your yard, or it's going somewhere because it's not going into the sewer main. But constituents have told me that they've reached out to the city in the past and said, I never had this problem before, but I suddenly have sewage in my yard. And unfortunately, they have not gotten an appropriate response. I know you're working on that, but I want to reiterate for the public that, in my view, if a contractor repeatedly makes that error and does not respond appropriately to a citizen's concern about sewage, that's something that requires a prompt response from the consent decree team.
Yeah, and there's one thing there that we're tracking as well, and because we're aware of those issues that have occurred as well. And it's important to recognize that the work that's been done in this program to date has been on the mainline sewers. Every home has a service lateral connection that comes in that goes from the mainline sewer up to the house. The work that's been done really goes from the mainline sewer, and then there's a little bit of that lateral that's been lined, typically about 18 to 24 inches. And so there have been some situations where work has happened on a mainline sewer. That mainline sewer has been repaired. It might have been a phase 1 project. There was an issue that came up a couple weeks ago. A phase 1 project had been completed in an area. A particular resident ended up having an issue with where there was a sewer leak that occurred, and this phase 1 project was completed about 3 years ago. The team investigated it, and what was actually found is that the service lateral itself, beyond the limits of the project, is what had collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an issue that in your city ordinance, the service laterals are the responsibility of the property owner to address. And so certainly where it's a case where we can target and confirm that the issue is associated with work that's been performed by the contractor and was their responsibility, we're focused on making that happen and getting that addressed. There are issues that happen that are identified to be really private service lateral issues, and those need to be dealt with in the appropriate manner.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Green.
Yes, in my district on Robert Street, this happened before we became elected. They tore Robert Street up. They did some of the sewage and whatever. Now Robert Street is sinking. It goes up and down, plus down Robert Street. They have a terrible smell at different points. They come out and put different stuff in the pipe to try to alleviate the smell, but it's still smelling and the street is still sinking. I've talked to Mr. Norman, and I'm sure Mr. Norman has talked to Patrick, but is there a way you all could look at that to see what update, how can you get the contractor to be held accountable to come back and fix that street and to get whatever sewage problem straight, because it's like an awful smell once it happens and they put whatever in the pipe to kill the smell, but it's terrible. The street is like up and down.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that. We've taken a note of that.
It's
We'll look
Robert
at that,
Street
sir.
off of Hollywood.
Roberts and Hollywood? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we have record of that particular area, Councilman Green. Specifically, that's phase 1 area. And it kind of correlates with Ms. Brazil that you mentioned earlier. When you have the phase 1, of course, you have the warranty period after the work was completed. And the warranty period is different for different projects. Once it comes out of warranty, and of course the warranty period, that means the contractor will cover all the work that was completed within the project. Once the warranty expires, we have to go through a different process and engage the city to come up with a solution for things that are no longer covered For example, if you replace the concrete panel for a driveway, and 2 years after that, you had a big crack go through the center, it's out of the warranty, but sometimes they still honor it. So that's kind of what's going on a lot in your district. It's a phase 1 area, and a lot of things are over warranty, and we're working right now with the city to have a path forward for you.
Okay. At some time in the near future, could you give me an update on how we're going to work out Robert Street? I've talked, like I say, Gary has been great, but he just said we need to hold the contractor accountable. Would you check with me and give me an update?
Most definitely. And I know for sure.
318-635-7118 is my number.
Oh, I got you.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Good deal.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilwoman Taylor?
What Councilman Nicholson was speaking about is, Councilman Nicholson, I think I have a similar issue in Cherokee Park. Was Cherokee Park part of phase 1?
I don't know that off the top of my head, ma'am, but
Okay.
we can look into that.
Yes, I have, I think 2 situations on Mayfair that actually resemble exactly what he's speaking of.
Okay.
And when you have gone in to repair that piping, and then there is a disconnect on the, I'm gonna use the word disconnect, for the constituent side, if they didn't have that problem before you guys started working, not you, just yourself, then all of a sudden it becomes the constituents' responsibility to go over there and cover it, because it's like new meeting old, I would think, in that particular sense. So that's something too, Councilman Nicholson, and I think I want to talk to you about, to explore, because it's happening to a lot of senior residents, and they just cannot absorb that level of cost to go over there and repair that sewer line. That may cost them tens of thousands of dollars that they just do not have. So I actually like to meet to discuss that for sure. And I think it may be a couple in Councilman Fleury's area as well.
Okay.
Well, Madam Chair,
Councilman Nicholson?
I know that some municipalities take responsibility in whole or in part for maintaining and repairing laterals. And I guess one of the many elephants in the room about the consent decree project is that you can repair the half-century-old sewer mains, but if you don't do anything with the laterals, they're going to be in poor shape, and you're going to have sewer backups and other problems. And as Councilwoman Taylor has just indicated, the vast majority of our citizens cannot afford to pay plumbers thousands of dollars to install a new lateral or to line their existing lateral. So I would be curious to hear from your team, Mr. Darlington, options or just a general overview of what other municipalities do. I don't know that we have the money to fix that problem, but on the other hand, it's not going to fix itself, and we're going to have to come up with a solution eventually.
Yeah, so we'll make a note to provide an update. In fact, I was actually sitting here preparing, and I was reading some things that our team is looking at on just that very issue. We are going to be evaluating that issue from the standpoint of the city has done a lot of work on the mainline sewers to address this sewer condition issue, and really with a targeted approach to try to address infiltration and inflow. What we want to be looking at and taking a step back is evaluating what is the cost benefit associated with doing work on the public side versus and compared with doing work on the private side. And as you said, Councilman, there's a lot of different ways to approach that. The first question is technically what's the right solution? And then the second question is how do you pay for it? And so there are some considerations that can be made with really both of those questions and try to develop an approach that could involve, there are some cities that have done this where the city will choose potentially to put some money towards private impacts because it's more economical to do that versus doing it all on the public side. So we are looking at that. That's one of our initiatives, our planning initiatives that we're going to be developing. I would say we're several months away from going through that data. Some of the hydraulic modeling effort is going to go towards that. Some of the flow meter data that we're going to collect this fall and this spring is going to support that effort because we need to evaluate that data to really be able to make a determination on what is most economical.
Thank you.
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Darlington, so we can get a visualization sort of what we're looking at. What are the potential outcomes if we decide that we absolutely did not want to deal with the private side? What would be a way that we would mitigate any of the issues with the I&I as a city without having to do anything with the private side?
Yeah, I don't think we know the answer to that yet. I mean, that's really the planning effort that we're undergoing right now.
But there's no potential ideas of what it might end up looking like?
Well, I think you would continue to spend money on the public side, is really what it would come down to. So you'd continue a very aggressive capital improvement program on the public side to address condition defects that are in your sanitary sewer system. Most likely, you end up needing to complete very, very large capacity projects because you have water that's entering your system that needs to be moved to a different location. And so that requires large pump stations, large storage facilities, large treatment plants to convey all of that water.
And then the continued maintenance on all of that.
And then the continued maintenance on all of that. So that's really from a high level. If you don't take it out, you have to move it to a location where you can manage it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Darlington.
Yep.
CAO Whitehorn.
Madam Chair, to Councilman Nicholson's and Councilwoman Taylor's point, at one point the city was responsible for those laterals. And it hadn't been too very long ago that responsibility was shifted to the homeowners. So I would be happy to maybe have some of those discussions with you to see how we can maybe go back to where the city is responsible for those laterals. Because a lot of that work is, those laterals go on the street, and so the homeowner is responsible for even boring under streets, and so we need to have that discussion.
Well, thank you, Mr. Warner. I'll say I had a problem with my own lateral before I got on the council, and I had a plumber come out and tell me what it would cost to replace it, and I fell out of my chair and didn't replace it. I just had to have them rotor-rooted every year or two. But again, I just know that the vast majority of people who live in our city cannot pay thousands of dollars to maintain those laterals. And I think it's in our collective interest that they be properly maintained. So I really think that discussion is worth having sooner rather than later.
Most definitely.
So I have one last topic that we'll cover before we wrap up. Want to talk just briefly and review some of the payment procedures related to processing payments to contractors. And really want to highlight this today because we are aware of some recent feedback that's been received by various members of the council. So just want to talk through this. The contracts that are being managed under this program, almost all of them, are based on processing payments and making payments to the prime contractor for work that's been completed in the previous month that is based on quantities that have been installed. So quantities are measured and they're approved for payment. It's the contractor's responsibility, the prime contractor's responsibility. We expect them to make a formal submission of quantities to apply for payment for work that's been done for the previous month. We expect that submittal to be done around the middle of the following month. We also require that the prime contractor provides supporting documentation. The supporting documentation really is focused on providing evidence and documentation for work that's been performed by the prime contractor's subcontractors. So the city's contracts contain a requirement where the prime contractor needs to submit documentation to that effect. And what we found previously in our review of the program is that requirement was not being regularly enforced. And so there have been occasions where a subcontractor has reported not being paid by a prime contractor or not being paid in a timely manner. So there were a number of issues where that came up. Earlier this year, we worked with the city attorney and developed a standard form that required a prime contractor to list out and certify payments that have been made to their subcontractors. And there's a similar form that we require the subcontractors to submit that basically says that they have been paid by the prime contractor. And the intent of these documents is really to protect the city from these instances of non-payment by the prime contractors to the subcontractors. So we require a formal submission from the prime contractor on quantities that indicate their progress for the previous month. We also require the supporting documentation that indicates work and payments associated with their subcontractors. Once that information is received, the program manager reviews and processes and recommends that the city make payment to the prime contractor. The city processes that payment, makes the payment, and then the prime contractors receive that payment and pay their subcontractors. So That is the process. What we have found is that typically if there are hangups with that process that's associated with those first couple steps, it's the prime contractor not making timely submission of quantities associated with their payment, or it's a lack of providing the supporting documentation associated with certifying payments that have been made to subcontractors. So that is the extent of our update today. A lot of questions already, but if there's any others, we'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Okay, anything else for consent decree related? Then, I'll thank you, hold tight, just in case anyone comes up with another one, but, I'd like to call Mr. Furlong to the podium, please.
Hi.
Hey, Patrick, on Robert Streets, do you have any kind of update on it as to where we are as far as getting it reconstructed, repaired?
No, sir, but I heard the discussion, and I do remember the email traffic on it, and Drayden and his team are handling it, so we'll follow up on it after this meeting and see
Okay.
exactly where we're at and report back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank
And
you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Taylor also had a question for
You
you.
could tell me exactly when the Spring Street Bridge is going to reopen?
No, I cannot tell you exactly when. It's a state project. I can check in with them and check the progress. Last I heard, they were talking about a month time frame. But I'll get an update on that for you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Mayor Perkins. We are now at property standards. Does any member have a question relative to property standards for Mr. Green?
I do.
Councilman Bowman, start, and then it looks like Councilman Nicholson following Councilman Bowman.
Mr. Green, just briefly on the, for the weed, but can you speak to the weed abatement so the council members understand about the?
Say again, can
you speak to the weed abatement deal of so the rest of the council members can understand where we're at on that?
Yes, sir. Basically, with the weed abatement ordinance, we've continually had the same amount for the violations over the past few years, and it hasn't really given us the results that we want, which is basically we want the citizens to take care of their own properties. So basically what we did was each violation will increase. If we have to cut it one time, it's 1 point. I mean, it's one price all the way up to 3. After that third time, it'll basically be at that price. And hopefully we'll get more participation from the citizens to take care of their own properties.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
A couple of things, Mr. Green.
Yes,
One,
sir.
this is in Councilman Fuller's district, but there's a commercial building across the street from Byrd High School where they're not cutting the grass.
Commercial building.
If you just drive by there the next time you have an opportunity,
Right.
if it's not cut, ask them to do that. And then I'll just say generally that I feel like I've noticed more trash and poor maintenance around several drugstores in my district. You know, well, I won't name the names, I guess, but drugstores and pharmacies. So if you see corporate-owned facilities that are not picking up trash or cutting their grass, let's please put all appropriate pressure on them to maintain their property well. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Taylor?
Earlier this week, and thank you, Mr. Green, in the 1600 block of MLK, we had a business owner that decided to clean out the old skating rink on MLK. And what he left was a pile of trash that was unfathomable. He started with a little pile about approximately 2 weeks ago on a Saturday, and then that pile just mounted to a nice little sized mountain, just full of old debris, things that were back from Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And in speaking to the owner of that particular piece of property, he indicated how he called the city and stated that they would pick it up in 1 to 30 days. And I was like, there's no way that you told the city that this was a commercial piece of property. So it is my very intent to let commercial owners know that MLK is not your dumping ground or any other community in District A or in this city. There is a process in which you have to follow in order that when you decide to gut a building, then you need to rent you a dumpster. This particular business owner has been cited because, I'm sorry that I didn't print the picture out to actually show you just how horrific it was that when you drive down MLK next to Ms. Thompson's Cleaners, how horrific that it actually looks. He has started to clean up with a little bitty dumpster, and from there, it's supposed to be cleaned today. But he's been cited, but I just want to reiterate again that this is not what you're going to do in the city of Shreveport. It's not the city's responsibility that when you decide to demolish a home, when you decide to gut your business, that it's our responsibility to pick it up and then leave that eyesore of trash for our citizens and anyone that's driving through our city to see. So if you see this particular owner and any other owner, then it is just my full responsibility to make sure that you are cited, especially if you do this in District A.
You're not done yet, Mr. Green. Would you mind giving an update on the two commercial eyesores in my area that we've been talking about so much, Dawn Seafood and that building, that burned down building on Gilbert?
Okay. Don Seafood, we are waiting on our talk with the senator and DEQ so that we can try to get this thing pushed along a little bit faster than what it is. There seems to be a breakdown in communication with DEQ and the contractor as to what they need in paperwork, and the DEQ waited until the day before she was to proceed with it before they said something.
So we've just had a back and forth as far as paperwork for asbestos mitigation.
Right.
What about that other one, the Gilbert Street?
We're fixing to get the asbestos removed from the structure, which should happen this month.
And then we can demolish that.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for all your hard work and persistence. I
Yes,
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Clark, do you have a master plan committee report?
I do need Mr. Green.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Council Administration. We do have such a report. We were contemplating how we were going to have a Master Plan Advisory Committee meeting. We had explored the virtual attempt to have such a meeting. And then sitting here today, it dawned on me that this horseshoe would adequately facilitate the members of the Master Plan Advisory Committee, where we could practice social distancing and spacing and wearing masks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have been for the last few months with the community advisory, with the neighborhood section of our office, doing an update, not an update, but a review of the master plan. We had over 200 recommendations from the master plan, but we had not gone through the process of seeing what had actually transpired in the 10 years since the adoption of the master plan. We have completed that process, and we really wanted the first entity that we shared this information with to be the Master Plan Advisory Group. So we are tentatively scheduling a meeting in September in order to once again assemble this group. Each entity has appointed a member. I remember you, Madam Chair, being on that committee and serving as the chair before it got sort of distracted due to COVID. But we have some real exciting news to present in reference to the master plan, and we are looking forward to providing you all with that information in the very near future. And then once we do that, we have plans of presenting that information to the Long Range Planning Committee of the Parish of Caddo Commission and the City Council and the Caddo Parish Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you.
We got financial reports today. Did everyone receive those? Very good. We have no public hearing. We have the following public comments. And we have public comments, and we have some that were submitted virtually that will be read following those. Start with Mr. Craig Lee.
He was outside.
Yeah, he's in the overflow.
Yeah. Come back.
Just in case other people are waiting in the overflow and can hear this. After Mr. Lee, we have Mr. McLaughlin Jr. Please give your name and your address, please.
Hi, Craig Lee, 1112 Prospect Street, Shreveport, Louisiana. As the chairperson for LACE, Liberation Advocates for Community Empowerment, I wanted to first thank Councilwoman Taylor for your video and voice concerning this critical issue of dumping in African American communities. That was very critical in terms of that overall situation because that impacts on many different things. So I definitely want to say that. Next, from 1996 to 2000, I was the youngest member on the grassroots empowerment team that compromised Councilman Harry Huckabee, Councilman Joe Shine, Larry English, Willie Bradford, James Pennell, former Attorney Joel Smith, and former Councilman Willie Bradford. And we fought to establish what is now today, for the past 22 years, the Fair Share Program there. And one of the things that I want to applaud the mayor on is starting his administration with bringing in Quinn Eubanks. That was a good direction to start. We know Quinn Eubanks went back to Baton Rouge, but Mayor followed this up with the best recommendation thus far, and that's Leon Wheeler. Leon has done a great job. He's already trying to bolster the roster for African American firms, which is what we wanted to do in the first place. So I want to thank him for all of the work that he is actually doing, and we're bringing as many firms as possible to the table. Marvin T. Muhammad's firm, Turnkey Painting and Remodeling, has already gotten their paperwork started, and I'm happy to say he's doing some work on a house that we're renovating over in the Queensboro area, which is a total gut out. And guess what, Tabitha? We got our dumpster on site. So from that standpoint, I want to thank you, Mayor, for making the best selection in the history of the program, because Leon has a unique skill set, having is a business owner, but having served as a chairperson for the African American Chamber, that is critical in terms of that overall get down. And lastly, for the past few months, Larry English and his wife mobilized a team, cross-section of community leaders and other volunteers, and we have been working diligently on bringing different components to the table to get federal funding for the city of Shreveport to jumpstart the city. I served on the bonding committee, so you got a lot of people, not only from Shreveport, but New York, St. Louis, and other places that's working to help bring some energy and resources to reignite in the city. So we are here and making sure that the council has some partners in terms of this endeavor. Thank you very much.
Councilman Green.
Craig. Has nothing to do with Rice and Russia, but you need to go by and see Big Mama. She had an incident. She had
Okay. All right. We'll do that.
This one, the last one was Rika Peoples. She's not here. Rudolph Glass. Mr. Glass.
I thought I saw her. She must have left.
She left.
Good afternoon. Rudolph Glass, 1735 Arlington, Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm here today. About 6 months ago, I started hearing shots in my neighborhood. After each shot, I called the police. They came. The first time they came, I couldn't tell where the shots came from, but the second time, I observed the young man walking into a house up the street from where I live. Every time I hear a shot, that's where it's coming from, so I call the police every time. Within 6 months, I've called about maybe 7 times. They only engaged the people one time during that time, okay? Then, last week, I had a shooting, and I called them, told them I saw the cars leaving and everything. Police came by, they passed by. They didn't stop. About maybe 15 minutes later, the cars came back. I called back again, told the officers to come out. I said, Mr. Glass, you want them to stop at your house? I said, they can, it doesn't matter. I showed them the cars and the people. They wouldn't engage. I said, you're not going up there to talk to them? He said, no. So I called the supervisor. Supervisor came and he talked to me and told me he didn't know what was going on and he would find out what was going on, okay? That was about maybe Thursday of last week. Sunday, got a phone call from my son. He was on their way to my house. And he said he thought it was firecrackers, okay? They had a shootout, the same cars, in the same house. My son was only a few seconds away from being caught up in the gunfire, okay? So, Monday morning, I went to talk to Deputy Chief Antoine White, and he made some phone calls and he did what he needed to do, okay? And I really appreciate him for that. But my thing is, it shouldn't have got to that point. Officers come out, identify the people for them, and they tell me, if anything else happens, give me a call, I'll be around the corner. I'm not gonna be far away. And my son and my granddaughter could have been caught in the middle of that. So I just wanted to let you all know what happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glass.
Mr. Glass.
Councilwoman Taylor?
Chief. Chief Ben Raymond. Mr. Glass,
Yes.
would you tell Chief what neighborhood association that you're over? Because this is concern for me in the Allendale area. This is something that I reported Saturday too, is going in and seeing some traffic over there. And then later on that evening, we had several shootings within that particular parameter that I contacted you on. And this is when you have, again, citizens that want to be involved in going in, and this is the level of, I don't want them not to be able to trust the process. So I would like, with you standing here, Mr. Glass, for you all to meet more sooner than later to discuss again with Deputy Chief and anyone else that you want to bring for that neighborhood association. I don't mind sending on your meeting as well. Just to make sure that we step up our efforts to go over here and get involved as much as we can, but also at the same time, making sure that we're working in the best interest of public safety and your safety as well.
Okay, appreciate it.
Councilman Green?
Chief.
Yes, sir.
I get a call basically every day, 5 or 6 times a day, that over in the Hollywood Heights area, they're shooting. Over by the Illinois apartment, they're shooting every night and every day. And those folk in that area are just begging for some relief.
Yes, sir.
They say the police come, even when they playing loud music and whatever, and they just pass on by. And they call them. They scared to call because they said they asked that their name not be called, but the folk, somebody still tell them who called, and they scared to death. And there's a lot of shooting going on in that area every night.
Yes, sir, we'll address it.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Will you make yourself available after public comments so that we can have a discussion with you, please?
Certainly.
Thank
I'll be-
you. Will that suffice?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Muhammad, Marvin Muhammad.
Marvin Muhammad. Marvin Muhammad, 2808, Hersey D. Wilson. And I'll try to be succinct, but first I'll be remiss, of course, not to speak on resolution number 91 that is paying tribute to Arthur Thomas, the Shreveport City Council clerk of council, the clerk of the council. As I always said to a lot of the young people, that Mr. Thompson is a reservoir of unlimited knowledge, political knowledge, legal and municipal, and you will be remiss not to be reaching out to him to learn many things. So I'm glad to see that resolution on the agenda today. But we rise to stand today because I was on Facebook earlier, and I don't know was Mayor Perkins the author of such, but he was tagged in a meme that says that when they can't beat you, they attack or they attack your character. You know, and I want to say to the mayor that he's complicit in that attack. He's complicit in that attack because the scripture says that when you have not done for the least of these, then also have you done unto me. And that one is being the best among of us that ever walked, and that was Jesus the Christ. But when the lives of Tommy McLaughlin, when the lives of Wavy Austin, when the lives of men like Anthony Childs is cast to the side, when the Shreveport Police Department can be allowed to hide their deaths for months, for weeks, with nothing, then you too, Mr. Mayor, is complicit. And in meeting with you, you asked us to hold you accountable. But when these men are not lives are seen important, when Liz Swain, the executive director of the Downtown Development Authority, can have one of her people, one of her patrolmen, if you will, Mr. Bell, that goes out and service a city contract, mind you, and he can have a gun pointed at him and his life threatened, and she can still hold a position, then what we are saying is that these black men's lives are not valuable, and therefore the life of the CEO of the city of Shreveport is also not valuable. I believe that Dr. King is often stated and said that a threat to injustice is a threat, that a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I tend to say that until everybody is safe, nobody is safe. And so we create these opportunities for them to attack us, particularly black men, because at the end of the day, it's about the decimation and the defamation of black men.
Sure.
And it's very important. What we need more of is a mayor.
Mr. Muhammad.
Yes.
Your time is expired.
I'm gonna need an additional minute.
I'll entertain a
Please.
motion.
While y'all doing that vote, I'll continue to talk.
I have a motion from Ms. Taylor? Do I have a second? Councilwoman Taylor, have a second to extend Mr.
Second.
Muhammad's time? I have a second. All in favor? Take a minute.
Thank you.
One more minute.
There's a lot of weeding going on. I saw a press conference held by Police Chief Raymond that Councilman Taylor was at. But weeding without seeding is meaningless, because you can take the so-called criminal off the street, but if you don't have any seeding, Mr. Mayor, that is going on through the city, all it would do is create vacuums of opportunity for the next young black child to go into that space. And this is why, regardless of the efforts of the Shreveport Police Department, you see just a continuing of this type of activity. So let's not just let's also seed. And when we do seed, let's not just seed horizontally, meaning into properties, cleaning up properties. That's a horizontal seeding. What we need is a vertical seeding. You know, Chief Administrative Assistant Marcus Mitchell, he made a post today that basically absolved the Shreveport Police Department of their handiwork in creating this environment that we are
Mr.
in
Muhammad,
today. Yes.
Your additional minute has ended, I'm sorry.
Okay. Any questions? That'll
I
give me
will offer
an
you an
opportunity to exhaust.
But
the
don't
final. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm gonna offer you opportunity to finish your thought, but that needs to be the end of it, okay? Just very quickly.
As I was saying, Chief Administrative Assistant Marcus Mitchell made a very elongated post this morning that received a lot of dialogue that basically absolved the Shreveport Police Department, you know, of his hands. And he's right. It is not the responsibility of the Shreveport Police Department to do those things. However, Rudolph Glass just came up here and pointed out the hypocrisy of how citizens would come forward, and when the Shreveport Police Department won't do anything to respond. We're being played on both sides, and it's time for us to do otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Albert Brown.
Well, good evening, everybody. Hello. All right, Albert Brown, 439 East 81st Street. Because I care ministry, Mr. Mayor, city councilmen, city employees, city of Shreveport. I just rise to stand I talked to Mr. Green earlier about, like you were saying, about the standard, because of the fact that what we're seeing now as I ride through the neighborhood. Oh, also, Mr. Green, congratulations, 43 years on your anniversary. Just rise and say that maybe we can put some cameras or some signs up to tell these people and let them know it's a fine about throwing these wash machines and tires, and because I'm riding through the city too, because I care, you know, I ride through the city, and I talked to Mr. Green. I was going to talk to him more. They leaving sofas and chairs and all that kind of stuff in the neighborhoods, and like you said, they go through the neighborhoods and they won't finish tearing down their houses and stuff. Maybe we can push this issue a little bit more harder. I talked to Mr. Green, me and him supposed to talk. And
Pastor Brown, just I don't want to interrupt your time, so I hope y'all yield it back. We do have an environmental crimes unit that does exactly that, and they've been very successful since we stood them up last year on catching the people that do the mass dumps in a lot of different areas. So we can get you their contact if you got some areas that y'all want to place those cameras in. But we've utilized the cameras and we've been successful at catching people doing mass dump. Yeah, we've caught people dumping tires and a bunch of other things as well.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just, and then I don't know, do the city, do the trash people, I don't think they supposed to pick that up or nothing, you know, because like I said, it just sits there.
Yeah, bulk pickup with trash is different than when people go and dump trash in the woods. It's two separate type of things.
Yeah, because they need some cameras, and we need some signs letting them know that, you know, it's gonna be a fine that put that stuff up there, because the people just now, they just taking and just throwing it, you know, aside. Like I said, I sure appreciate it. And I guess I got 1 minute on this one here. But you know, like I said, you know, I care about the city. I know a lot of us care about the city. And I thank God that you all we're back going again. Thank God none of you all got that cover. And like I said, getting back started with the city. I know we're not delayed, but not denied. I know it takes time because we had this situation that happened, and I know everything ain't gonna happen overnight. I know that. I ain't denying. I ain't living in denial. But I know that it takes time for all this because we had this setback. So, but I thank you, and I'll begin with Brother Green, and I'll be checking with you all. Thank you all so much. Any questions?
Mr. Brown, I do have a question. You put in 2 slips, but we're supposed to be sticking to 1 slip, 3 minutes per person. Did you have a second topic you wanted to talk about?
Yes.
Will
gonna
you
give
just
me-
take your last minute and talk about it real quick?
Well, I need more than that, you know. Okay, the vision. You know, what happened to our vision here in the city? What happened to our vision? With the, like I said, with the police officers, I'm like the brother. I call and I can't get nobody to respond to me, you know, about mine. I call Mr. Bosch, and because my people in my neighborhood, they called me and they said, Mr. Brown, we need you. I don't get, and I understand, like I said, I understand that we had this situation didn't happen. I understand this didn't happen. But we still got to go on with our city. We still have to go on with our city. The city still don't stop. The city don't stop. You know? We still have to go on. And what happened to our vision, you all? Brother Mayor, don't give up, man. You ain't gonna please everybody. You're gonna have some people on this side gonna say yes, and then you're gonna have some people on this side say no. Man, that, Brother Green can tell you that. We don't stop with the vision. Don't give up. I know sometimes I want to give up. Sometimes I get up in the morning and I say, Lord, what am I doing? But I still say, keep on going.
Pastor Brown.
Keep on going.
Pastor Brown, I'm gonna stop you right there. That's a good place for me to let you wrap it up because your time is up.
Well, you told me I had to do
Another 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr.
Make
Brown.
up your mind.
I told you I was very specific. Now I realize y'all are taking full advantage because we haven't been in the room all together for a long time, so we're getting a little loosey-goosey. I think we're just kind of having warm and fuzzies. But if I know my colleagues, I know they're all going to want to get to dinner at a timely time.
Yeah, I do too.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you, Mr.
Well,
Brown.
I'll talk to you. Okay.
We
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
you.
I'm being decent.
Miss John Glover.
Good evening. John Glover, 9100 Walker Road, apartment 121, Shreveport, 71118. When I started looking through the agenda, there were a lot of things that caught my attention, but two items in particular. Resolution 94 and Ordinance 54. When I gave attention to Resolution 94 with the group that I'm with, Cattle Alliance for Freedom, we all sat and said, how can we together collectively address this particular issue? And it took me back to Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 27. In that passage, there was a building of a house, or two houses. One counted the full cost of what it meant to build that house on a solid foundation. The other did not. As such, here's annexation. Undoubtedly, the total cost when those who are requesting to be annexed to the city was not done. So you can't ask to not be a part of and then ask to be a part of. You just can't have it both ways. This is not a, have your cake and eat it too situation. Our services are strained here in our city, finances as well. And we cannot stretch ourselves beyond ourselves. Relative to Ordinance 54, I saw another end run. It was a rezoning. The rezoning over in, I'm not sure what the area is, but it seems to be north of Shreveport, whereby a single family dwelling is being rezoned to a multi-family dwelling. And I thought about 2 Timothy 2:15, where you have to study the information that's given you, where you can gain the insight and the perspective of what is being offered before you. Not more than what, before we had this COVID situation, this same situation was happening up in the Cooper Road area. And many a voice came and said, we don't want it. Now COVID-19 has interrupted the practices that we would normally have. Town hall meetings, public hearings, whatever, to give the people an opportunity to see exactly what's going on. Has that been done? We don't know, but it's something to be considered. We have to always count the cost and make sure we recognize the information that is put before us. Thank you.
Mr. Sammy Mears.
Sammy Mears, 1901 Centenary Boulevard, apartment M110, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71101. I have really missed everyone here, and it's great to be back after all these 4 months that we've been away. For the fact that for the past 4 months, and I know that I have not been in contact because this COVID-19 has really annoyed me, and for not having done that, I do apologize and hope that you'll be able to forgive me for my mistake. I really wanted to, but I've just been very down because of this stupid pandemic. It's sick. And believe me, that's sick. However, I've been getting on a continuous basis scamming robocalls that just don't want to leave me alone. And just recently I got one, and one of them told me that I was going to be answering questions all night. And Levette, I've been saving this especially for you. I replied, "You can throw the margin out the window and see the butterfly for all I care," and then I hung up. And I don't regret it. Now, I do apologize again that I have not made any contact with anyone, but I hope, James Green, that you can find it in your heart to forgive me for that.
I forgive you, Sam.
I thank you very much. And I've just been so mad. This COVID-19 just makes me want to beat its brains out if it had any, but I doubt that it does, and I doubt that it would even work. But if it did have any brains, I'd beat its brains out from here to Jupiter and make them stay. Because I didn't want COVID-19 to come. Why doesn't it go find its mama and leave the rest of us alone? Anyway, what did work recently was last Tuesday when Harry Townsend from First Baptist Church of Shreveport and myself, we went out to Olive Gardens and had a good lunch together. He had about 3 or 4 soups, and I had spaghetti and tea and lemon. And then afterwards he said, "I ate 4 soups, Sammy," and I said, "If you may say you ate them, but I just wondered if you'd inhaled them the way you ate." Because I think he really inhaled them. They were gone. Gee. But it is good that we were all able to come back today, and I'm very happy. But being away from here made me feel like 2 things, like Beavis and Butthead look, and the way that Laverne and Shirley always go at it. Because the other day, Shirley brought home a canary, and Laverne said, "You brought home a canary?" "Oh, but Laverne, isn't the canary cute?" I said, "Bring home oregano," and she brings home a canary.
Thank you, Sammy. No, I am really reading all of these, correct? Okay. Who's timing me? Thank you. You promise. All right. This is from Commissioner John Paul Young. As the Caddo Parish Commissioner for District 4, which includes parts of Highland, South Highland, Broadmoor, Shreve Island, and Dixie Gardens, I love that, really. I urge the City Council to reject the proposed annexation, to rethink the role of the MPC in annexation decisions, and to consider long-term investments which encourage inward rather than outward growth. Shreveport is geographically overextended city. It occupies more space per person every year because annexation continues even while our population drops. This has contributed to financial insolvency. We cannot afford to maintain our infrastructure, which in turn leads to a decline in quality of life and the loss of young, educated people to walkable cities. Adding new infrastructure along the fringes makes these problems even worse, especially over the long term. MPC leaders should be aware that this proposed annexation is a long-term fiscal negative. I have personally been present at an MPC-sponsored Strongtown seminar in which the expert speaker discredited with abundant data the exact type of proposal presented here, the gradual extension of sprawl, one subdivision at a time. The MPC has offered only a very weak, short-term cost-benefit analysis of this project, and it has taken no fundamental position on the topic of annexation in general. Annexation of this parcel is the wrong move. The MPC is encouraging the proposal. This proposal is evidence to me that the MPC, under its current leadership, is not capable of long-term planning for our region's benefit. His other is, well, this goes a very long time. Only a single justification is ever offered in favor of annexation, retaining tax revenue. The simple rebuttal of this justification is that the physical and financial cost of extending water infrastructure overburdens our collapsing water system. As Charles Morone has documented, and as he pointed out on his visit to Shreveport earlier this year, studies show that these costs almost always outweigh the tax benefit after 20 or 30 years, when many of the pipes will have to be repaired and replaced. The MPC is aware of these costs, but ignores them in this proposal. This proposal also has suspicious motives, because it is the inner region that is openly promoting political separation from the city of Shreveport to create a new municipality to be called Forming or Ellerby Park. Councilman Butcher has publicized the idea of political separation without endorsing it on Facebook. A subsidy for a single developer that results in a long-term loss for the city, the entire city, does more harm than good. For Shreveport to subsidize new building where many residents promote separation to a form of different city is essentially to spend public resources in order to reduce.
Chairwoman Fuller.
Thank you. Is that what y'all have been doing while y'all are watching me on Facebook? Okay, this is from Commissioner John Atkins. Dear Shreveport City Council, I support our Police Chief Ben Raymond, led this city to the lowest crime rate we've seen in over 40 years while serving as the temporary police chief in 2019. And as chief, he has successfully led the department through the worst pandemic of our lifetime, followed by a period of extreme anti-law enforcement rhetoric and calls to defund police departments nationwide. Nevertheless, during numerous demonstrations in Shreveport, there has been little violence and no property destroyed. The city should be proud of Chief Raymond's accomplishments. He deserves to be commended, not criticized. Respectfully, John E. Atkins. Charles Gerard, 2304 Creswell Avenue, number 4. I submit this written comment in support of Resolution 94, encouraging a year's pause in annexations with reasonable exceptions. It is widely accepted that annexation in the past. Accordingly, the city is now out of line with other cities in terms of land per person. The net cost of this sprawl have apparently contributed heavily to the very poor state of public finances and an inability to maintain what we have built. This seems to be an active and creative city council. It should work directly in with the MPC on this matter by pausing annexations, analyzing all-in costs versus benefits to the citizens, and considering whether a fraction of these net costs may be applied to more prudent redevelopment and new development of the enormous existing footprint at greater net benefit to us all. Charles Gerard, a resident, District B. Reagan Bashara, 401 Forest. Resolution 87, body-worn cameras are ineffective to policing if the SPD does not already abide by recording policies. Body-worn cameras are as useless as bumper stickers in enhancing the level of service provided by the Shreveport Police Department. In the Shreveport Times article, July 27, 2020, by Deborah Bayless, Chief Raymond states, Mayor Perkins claims to have been pulled over for turning the wrong way down a one-way road downtown. In the same article, Mayor Perkins invites the media to obtain statements from the officers that pulled him over and immediately follows with, "It never happened." The Times review of the radio dispatches and SPD activity laws returned no mention of the mayor being involved in a traffic stop. There are two explanations for the mayor, chief, and mayor's statements. One, the mayor was never involved in an SPD traffic stop, contradicting the chief and mayor's statements to the Times, or two, during the mayor's traffic stop, the SPD did not engage body-worn or dash cam vehicle recording devices, therefore violating SPD policy 6060.13, which requires MVR equipment to be activated during all citizen contacts, including traffic stops. The purchase of body-worn cameras for documenting audio and visual evidence of police contact with citizens will not enhance the level of service provided if the SPD cannot abide by the recording policies already in place for these devices. Ashley Hebert, 2644 South Sherwood Forest, number 108, Baton Rouge. Council members, today I am disappointed once again that a council member has introduced an ordinance to further delay the smoke-free implementation. We elect leaders to stand by their constituents, and these officials have once again failed our community by making them wait during a public health crisis for this beneficial legislation to take effect. We encourage councilpersons Fuller and Nicholson to take a strong stand when it comes to this vote and show their constituents they hear them and they stand by them. We hope that bars and other businesses will consider reopening smoke-free when they are able to resume normal business for their health and the health of their patrons. On June 9th, you made a strong statement that public health mattered. You told casino employees they were finally worth protecting. By giving the certain industries more time to comply with the law, you are saying the opposite. Jewel Williams, 1902 Doris Street. Members of the Shreveport City Council, collectively, we, 72 of your constituents, stand to say thank you to Councilman John Nicholson and Councilwoman Lavette Fuller for their unwavering support for the best interests of the hospitality workers in Shreveport. The both of you made it clear that the voices of the constituency matter, and that you would not yield to the pressure tactics of big business. Thank you for keeping your campaign promise. We are very disappointed that the remaining members of the council chose to ignore our voices and not see the value of adding an additional measure to protection to the lives of hospitality workers. Postponing smoke-free implementation in casinos and now bars for a year sends a clear message that you may want folks to get back to work, but you are willing to turn your heads when it comes to protecting their health while in the work environment. Removing masks to smoke is a double whammy. There's nothing like folks blowing out secondhand smoke filled with known cancer-causing chemicals and releasing respiratory droplets that could contribute to person-to-person transmission of the coronavirus. Would you want to work in a place where people were allowed to remove their mask and blow in your face or in your direction? That's the predicament you're creating for over 2,000 employees that you say you care about. Your constituents, Jewel Williams, and 72 registered voters. And each of us has received the packet with the petition or the signatures. Al Cummings, 6600 Venus Drive. Smoke-free ordinance. Implementation, Shreveport City Council members, thank you, Councilman Nicholson and Councilwoman Fuller, for towing the line, standing your ground, and listening to the voices of those who entrusted you with your position. Listening means you care about and respect the community. Please continue to stand up for the people and not be bullied by big business. Please protect hospitality workers, lives over money, power, and influence. Sincerely, Al Cummings. April Abraham, 7820 Millicent Way. Councilwoman Fuller, Councilman Nicholson, you have my utmost respect. You stood strong for the people, which is exactly what we elected you to do. Thank you for your loyalty. If everyone else listened to the collective voice of the people, all of the 2,000 hospitality workers in Shreveport would be protected from secondhand smoke. Now workers will be subjected to people removing their masks and blowing smoke and possibly disease-filled droplets to their faces. Wow. So much for a safe working environment. 1 year is 364 days too long. Please start listening and respecting the voices of the community. Please make hospitality workers health a priority. Sincerely, April Abraham. Amanda Joubert, or Joubert, I don't know. 271 Sawgrass Drive. I have been appalled by comments I read online at the last city council meeting. Did the council member who suggested a vote of no confidence in Police Chief Ben Raymond forget that in his first year as interim chief, whatever that title means, our city had its lowest crime rate since 1975? I know because 1975 is the year I was born, and I grew up knowing to stay in my happy gated suburb away from the horrible crime that ran rampant around the rest of the city. Homicide rates dropped 30% in Chief Raymond's first year. This chief has led our department through the worst pandemic of our lifetime. During demonstrations in Shreveport, there was no injury and there was no property destroyed, even though both occurrences were rampant around the rest of our nation. All of this, yet someone out there has no confidence in our chief. I have no confidence in at least 2 of our city council members. Can I call for this vote of no confidence, or are we stuck with incompetence for the next 4 years? Ian McElroy, 4624 Fairfield Avenue. I support the Shreveport Police Department and its current Chief Ben Raymond. Last year in Shreveport, we had the lowest crime rate we've had in 40 years. Thanks to Chief Raymond's leadership and the efforts of the entire Shreveport Police Department. In addition, there have been numerous demonstrations in Shreveport this summer, and unlike many cities across our country, there was no violence and no loss of property thanks to our police department and their leadership. Police Chief Ben Raymond answers the hard questions, accepts criticism, admits his mistakes, and is always a professional. I even saw him walking with demonstrators as they called police brutal and specifically called for his resignation. Yet he was the complete professional that we all recognize him to be. I am confident that Police Chief Ben Raymond is the right police chief for Shreveport, and I am confident that we need to maintain the Shreveport Police Department's funding. Karen McElroy, 4624 Fairfield Avenue. Police departments across the country are under fire. Nationally, violent crimes are up, unemployment is up, the worst pandemic of our life is unfolding, and racial tensions are at an all-time high. With all of this, rather than focusing on working to make our city rise above and sustain these difficult times, we are choosing to play along and engage in finger-pointing at the expense of the department that is set up to protect us. Chief Raymond and the SPD work tirelessly every day to protect a city that often does not welcome them in the very areas that carry the brunt of their crimes. Officers are working longer hours than before with the recent anti-law enforcement push, are under a microscope, with their every move causing morale to be at an all-time low. Chief Raymond entered this position with all of you choosing to give your support by agreeing to his confirmation. In his first year as interim chief, city crime was down to the lowest level since 1975. He has taken on neighborhood shifts, policed our city's recent demonstrations to ensure peace, attended community events, visited crime scenes, engaged in neighborhood meetings, answered your tough questions, and accepted your negative criticism with an attitude to listen and do better. Our city's thanks to him and the entire SPD has been a suggestion for a call for a vote of no confidence in defunding for the very department we all call on and depend on every day. I fully appreciate and support Chief Raymond and our entire SPD and hope you choose to do the same before we, the constituents, lose all confidence in you. Thomas McElroy, P.O. Box 1148. Our police chief, Ben Raymond, has led this city to the lowest crime rate we have seen in over 40 years while serving as a temporary police chief during much of that time during 2019. Then he has successfully led the department through the worst pandemic of our lifetime, followed by extreme anti-law rhetoric and calls to defund police departments nationwide. During numerous demonstrations in Shreveport, there was no violence, no property destroyed, although that's exactly what happened across this nation. But after all that, some city council members have no confidence in our police chief. Sanders Hearn, 743 Hazelwood Drive. Dear council members, as a citizen of Shreveport, I would strongly oppose defunding our police department. I do support the city council in performing its duty of oversight and review and where necessary reform. The issues confronting us today need to be openly explored and addressed. It is my impression that in Shreveport, the relationship between the citizens and the police department is a good one. Things can always be improved, but do not make the mistake of overreacting. Sincerely yours, Sanders Hearn. Gray Teagle, 7717 Crestwell Road. I speak in support of the Shreveport Police Department and Chief Ben Raymond. While any police department can improve, the SPD and Chief Raymond continue to serve and protect our citizens during these trying times. Calls to defund the police department and calling for a vote of no confidence in the chief are misguided at best. The chief of police has acted with professionalism and should be thanked for his service, along with the vast majority of our police officers. Jenny Cowan, 102 Swedes Avenue. Police Chief Raymond, I have a hard time believing that someone on the city council would have no confidence in our current police chief, Ben Raymond, and want to vote him out. If that is true, I suspect that he or she would have no confidence in anyone put in that position. There are just some people that are happy to be unhappy and can never be pleased, but I, for one, could not be more pleased with the job Ben Raymond is doing. We are so lucky to finally have an individual like Chief Raymond to lead our city's police force. Being a police officer is one of those thankless jobs that you must have passion for to do every day. Ben Raymond truly cares about our city and is committed to doing the best job for our citizens. You will not find a more professional and competent person to fill his shoes. Our city is seeing the lowest crime rates we've had since the mid-1970s. Even in today's climate and social unrest, I have never felt safer in my own city than I do now. And I believe that this is due to Ben Raymond's leadership within our city and our police force. I know there have been recent allegations made against police officers. Please allow them to be investigated properly before chastising the department, the officers involved, and law enforcement altogether. Our police chief is following state laws and civil service procedures with regards to handling these investigations. If he did not, he would be violating the rights of the officers themselves. Is that how you would prefer things to be done in city government? We cannot be so quick to blame the police for our society's problems. We all must take part in reducing crime rates and making our cities safer. But until then, we must depend on the police to keep our communities safe, and they deserve our support. I support the police department and its current chief, and you should too. Sincerely, concerned citizen Jenny Cowan. Emily Peratt, 146 Albert Avenue. The police chief does not need to be removed. He is following protocol with recent allegations about his staff and needs time to process them legally, which he is doing. Jumping to conclusions about his ability to lead, potentially replacing him in the midst of our country's chaos, does not help our community. Let him continue to improve the department. Our crime rate is lower today. Let him continue to follow state and local laws in processing the recent allegations. Let him implement change if needed. Replacing him with someone new today will create more chaos. That's the last page. I don't want to hurry up. Don't tell me to take my time. Casey Hannigan, 712 Ratcliffe. The recent upsurge in crime in our city is not unique to Shreveport. It is a pandemic currently occurring in many towns, cities, states, and countries across the world. These random acts of violence are difficult for our officers to predict and intercept, and often end with little information for the officers to investigate, as few witnesses come forward due to fear of retaliation. Making it even more difficult is officers now fear for their own lives, whether through a bullet to them or an indictment due to their practices. Police departments across the nation are now met with anti-law enforcement rhetoric and calls to defund police departments. Once again, Shreveport has followed suit in this attempt. Chief Raymond and the Shreveport Police Department are not to blame for the country's current problems, but are unfortunately taking the fall. Our city is short officers and funding, but yet during recent demonstrations in our city, we were one of the few with no violence committed and no property destroyed. These officers continue to patrol and fight crime in areas of our city in which they are met with hatred toward them only due to the selfless, heroic career they chose. The city's response to them is to call for no confidence in the chief and ask for the DOJ investigation into the department for supposed misconduct. Crime will continue in our city until the city council, mayor, SPD, and the community leaders come together and address these problems as a whole and stop pointing fingers. I fully support and pray for Chief Raymond and the SPD officers and hope others will do the same. Ken Kreft. Congratulations to long-serving clerk of the city council, the unassuming Arthur Thompson. Art, you need a break. I do sincerely appreciate your many efforts to make this a better city. You nipped me on a close vote many moons ago after the late Colonel Robert Slane stepped down. You have been a good steward on our collective behalf. A question. Are you going to attend the 2021 budget hearings? Well played, AT. Very sincerely yours, Ken Kreft. This concludes our request to speak, and there's a couple of things. One, I did say that we should bring up Chief Raymond. Is it okay if we do that now?
No, fine.
And then I'd like to suspend the rules to look at the resolution for the body cams.
Right, yes, I agree.
Okay,
I had can I ask a question real quick, please?
go ahead, Councilman Bowman.
I mean, yeah, come on. I just, after hearing those statements, I just wondered if any council member knew where this came from no, a vote of no confidence in the chief.
I don't think that anyone's voting no confidence.
No,
I just remember you saying that you've been approached by one, not that anybody was actually gonna do it.
Right, so that's, okay. I was just making sure when I heard you read the first one, I was like, okay, but then as they kept coming back to back, then I was concerned that maybe somebody misinterpreted something.
They did. They
Okay.
misinterpreted based on an article on Keel.
Well, Kill normally gets it,
I know.
On an article where?
the
On
no-fly
Keel
zone.
Radio's website, they picked up his quotes from last council meeting and did an article about it.
What station is?
They say you're in a no-fly zone.
Councilman Nicholson, you have questions?
Madam Chair, Chief, let me just say first that I very much appreciate your leadership of the Shreveport Police Department since you became interim chief. I cannot imagine serving as police chief in more difficult circumstances, and from my seat, I believe you've done an exceptional job, and the entire city owes you a debt of gratitude for that.
Thank you.
There's been, as you know, post-COVID, a rise in violent crime here, and there's been a rise in violent crime across the country. I just want to communicate that if you need additional funding for interdiction units or any other operations to target repeat violent offenders, much like the people that Mr. Glass talked about during his remarks during public comments, I am prepared to sponsor and support legislation to get you those funds. We all know that millions of dollars are budgeted for the police for this year that we're not going to be able to spend because we don't have as many officers on staff as we would like to. If you and the administration think that utilizing some of those funds for targeted efforts to deter violent crime would be effective, then by all means, please present that to the council, and I will be very supportive. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Did anyone else have some comments or questions for Chief Raymond?
Yeah, I did. It's just a thought. I looked at some of the, I think it was an old tactic, and it may be when Mayor Glover was in office, and I wanted to just see if we can revamp, and that's something to come up with maybe Chief Whitehorn and yourself, Chief, about the Operation T-Bone, just to revamp that some kind of way. And I think, most of those things in there did work. It was effective in the communities, and if we can just revamp that and try to push it
And
to
we
work.
did, Chief Whitehorn and I and Councilwoman Taylor, we actually discussed T-Bone
Sound
and
good.
some of the remnants.
Councilman Bowman. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. There are some other things that we did discuss in at a meeting that I had with the chief that actually speaks to what you're talking about, and then some other community initiatives that we are looking at, because one of the things that I told the chief is the we want to make sure that we are working to restore a level of public trust, and that means that we're going to have some tough conversations, and those conversations that sometimes people don't like to have. But here we are, and this is what we have to deal with, and we're going to have to make the best of it, even in dealing with COVID. I think, again, as Mr. Glass came up earlier, those particular concerns that we have within the inner city community, that those conversations, again, must take place. And again, they're going to be tough conversations, but they have to take place in order for us to move forward in this city. So I'll go back over those things with you in the email that I sent to them and other civic organizations and community partners with a number of things that we want to do as far as public safety is concerned.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Councilwoman.
Chief Raymond, were you listening to those comments as they came through?
Unfortunately, I missed about the last 20 minutes. I was called out to speak with
Well,
Mr. Woodley.
there was a lot of support for your efforts, for the way that you've handled professionally the protests, the demonstrations, gotten us through COVID-19. And it was, you can tell when you've got a campaign. I've been reading the comments for a while now to recognize when the campaign is happening. But what I noticed was the addresses. And I just want to say that I'd like to invite anyone from the areas of Broadmoor or Fairfield or Southern Trace that put those in to take a tour with Mr. Glass of what he's living with and see if they feel the same. And see how they would feel if they had the narrative that he brought to us today about the police coming to see him but not being able to fulfill his requests or explain why they weren't doing more.
And I hope those individuals are listening. Again, I missed the last 20 minutes, so I did hear one supportive email.
Right.
or-
Now, the
or
thing is, I
comment.
know that from talking to you that you have empathy for that plight and that you're working toward that, and I know we're gonna have more discussions about that. But I'm just hoping that the full community realizes that we're having a disconnect here that is definitely drawn straight down the middle of I-49, with some people thinking things on one side and having a completely different experience on the other. And it's really it's kind of obvious from just the addresses that went with the narrative today. Okay, thank you, Chief.
Yes, ma'am. And if I could, I'd like to address Councilman Nicholson. I don't want to miss this opportunity regarding funding. We don't have a shortage of funds with regards to overtime operations, special operations. But again, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that our funding issue is directly related to police raises. Over the last few weeks that we've seen spikes in violent crime, our agency, like many others nationwide, are also seeing a disproportionate number of resignations, retirements, and terminations. So without trying to get too deep into numbers, historically we lose 3 people a month, 36 a year over the last decade. This year alone, I think we're at 39. We're in the 7th month. So we're losing close to 6 a year this year. And some of that, not all of it, but some of that is going to be directly tied, I think, to pay, because we're losing young officers to other local agencies. It doesn't affect where they live, doesn't affect their family's life, but they'll jump, a municipality or a parish over to make $3,000 or $4,000 more a year and get a take-home car. And that's literally where that line is. And anything that we can do budgetarily to give raises, even especially at that low end, as we go into the budget season, is going to be very beneficial. And I hope it's going to at least put a tourniquet on what we have right now is a femoral bleed of officers.
Do you really mean that? Because I've got the legislation right now. I'm going to be submitting it to sponsor in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
then, all right, you heard it here first, folks. It's coming.
Sir, thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, Chief, and consistent with Councilwoman Fuller's comment, I think we've reached the point where we have to address this. We all are well aware of how budgetarily constrained the city of Shreveport is, but we have to be able to retain the police officers we need to keep the community safe. And so whatever it takes to make a meaningful adjustment to pay, especially on the low end for your younger officers, we're just going to have to do it in the next budget cycle, and I'm committed to supporting that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Green.
Chief, would you look at your calendar for next week? I'd like to have a meeting with you and give me a call
Oh, sir.
as
I'll give you a
to
call.
what day you and whoever you'd like to bring.
Yes, sir. Discussing crime or?
Yes, sir.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Just wanted to say I'm full of support. I've been asking and trying to find ways to, get the votes or whatever to get the raise for SPD. So whatever it is that the legislation that you put forth, I'll support that.
It's about ready. I'll send it. We'll review. We'll look at it and see what we can do.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Now I think it would be appropriate I would like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules so that we can look at, what number is that legislation?
991.
Okay, to look at resolution 91. I got that's from Bowman and a second from
Me.
From Green. This is, wait, is it 91 or are we?
Madam Chair,
No,
Resolution 91
shut-
concerns Arthur Thompson.
91 is
No,
for
I'm
Art
sorry.
Thompson.
I'm sorry. It was
for 87.
I'm sorry, 87.
Second.
Okay, it's a second now from Nicholson. All right, so can we ask for
That's all right,
Mr.
sir.
Griggs to come forward
Sure.
with that big purple thing you got there that looks really pretty from here? I don't think it's just because it's purple.
Shall we have a vote to suspend
You
the
got-
rules? Do we need to?
Yeah, we need to vote. Y'all know I've never done this before in the real room.
Thought we did.
I appreciate y'all.
Madam Chairperson, council members, Mayor Perkins. I'm excited to be here this afternoon. I come here to stand before you to represent the business owners of Shreveport. I want to make that perfectly clear. We're here in support of the city of Shreveport. Business owners, community leaders, individuals who want to make a difference here in Shreveport. This is a great city. This is my home. This is where I plan to retire. And I had an idea, what can we do as business owners to try to make a difference here in Shreveport? We often talk about all the problems and the ills of Shreveport. You know, it's easy to say what's wrong, but what can we do to try to heal some of those wrongs, or cure some of those wrongs? And there are several business owners who have stepped up to try to make a difference here in Shreveport. And we're called Concerned Business People of Shreveport, raising funds to provide body cams for the police department. Body cams don't lie. I know I have the great policies to go along with those body cams, but the cams will not lie. There is a disconnect here with the police officers and our community here, our city of Shreveport. And there's a distrust. And we've got to try to find a way as individuals, as business owners, to help broaden that gap or close that gap, for lack of a better word. Several business and community leaders have formed an organization to raise funds for the Shreveport Police Department to secure body cameras and related equipment. Those individuals, the founders being Roy Griggs, Griggs Enterprise McDonald's, David Aubrey, Director of External Affairs, AT&T, Linda Bernanke, owner of Fire Tech System, Jacqueline Scott, locally attorney, Lemar Fluker, a local entrepreneur and business owner, a realty squad, Omar Hossein, with 45 days of action, kind of grounded this thing with grassroots effort and got this thing going. And we asked other businesses to come on board with us, and we've had great support. We're registered as the Concerned Business People of Shreveport. Our overall aim is to strengthen the relationship between the community and the police department. The hope is that these funds will assist in maximizing the effort of bridging the gap and thus making a positive impact here in Shreveport. Body cams enable our officers to be transparent in the performance of this very difficult job. They offer protection to the person being confronted
and the police officer. We believe everyone in our community will benefit from the use of these cameras. We are pleased to have secured funds for $100,000 from several businesses in Shreveport here. We need to raise a total of $200,000, and I believe by the end of this month we'll have the $200,000 to purchase 400 body cams. We have an account set up at Carter Federal Credit Union, and you can make any donations. No amount is too small, no amount is too large. $5, $10, $25, $50, and a lot of our citizens have been making those kinds of donations. So it really makes me feel good to see that the other business owners who have stepped up and the citizens who are involved in this effort to make Shreveport a better place to work, a better place to live. As a business owner, we need good policing here. I would dare not run my business and not have police officers here. And then the thought of not having cameras in my business should also frighten me. And I think our officers need those body cams too. And they can also be used as training tools, you know. And I might ask Mrs. Moses just come read some of the businesses who have come on board to help us with this effort.
Good afternoon. Those donors that have contributed finances to the concerned business people of Shreveport, Superior Bar and Grill, Superior Steakhouse, Origin Bank, Home Federal Bank, Corey Kraft, Linda Bernanke, AT&T, David Aubrey, Lemar Flukers, Attorney Jacqueline Scott, Roy Griggs, T&M Fence Company, Marshall James, Carter Federal, Jonathan Reynolds, Builders Supply, Carlton Golden, Alicia Hullaby, Affordable Mechanics, Cadero Malone, Attorney Trey Morris, Becca Land Services, Bessie Casey, John Settle, Emily Merkel, Omario Tech, Ebony Mitchell, John Atkins, Ross and Christina Roberts, James Bastello, Cheryl Brown, Gary and Marilyn Joyner, Judith McCoglin, Lois Snibbs.
Thank you. So it's a very diverse group of donors who's supporting this effort, and there's no doubt in my mind that we will not reach our goal, and I believe we'll have it by the end of this month. But at this time, I guess we'd like to make a presentation to the Shreveport Police Department of $100,000 at this time. And we have a representative here from Fire Tech, Linda Bernanke, could not be here, but she has a representative here. I think everyone else has gone or did not make it here today. Come on. You can turn.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Creed.
Mr. Griggs, before you go, I'd just like to commend you for all the work that you've done in Shreveport and that you do, and spearheading getting this group together to help us in this city with these cameras. And this is very personal to me. Nobody had contacted me about giving, but you said you were still raising money. I'm going to pledge $500.
Thank you.
Because this is so meaningful to me until it almost brings me to tears, because I know the value of video cameras. I didn't know some time ago, but I know the value of them now, because some time ago I was accused of something, But that particular day, at that particular time, their video cameras was not working. And so, from me, just put me down for $500. I will get it to you before the money's up.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pledge $501.
Council members, mayor, administrative staff.
How much?
On behalf of the Shreveport Police Department, we do accept this donation from Mr. Griggs and the supporting businesses. We think it's beautiful whenever the citizens can step up and dedicate themselves to the process of helping the city to move forward and showing their support for the police department. In less than 60 days, what you and your team have been able to accomplish in such a short period of time, we are truly appreciative. We have started the process for acquiring these body cameras, and we look forward to giving you an update within a month's time. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Nicholson.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to add my voice to those expressing appreciation to Mr. Griggs. He is, as we all know, such an important community leader and business leader, and this is just one thing among many that he has done for the city of Shreveport. I also want to express appreciation to Mayor Perkins and his administration for making the acquisition and implementation of body cameras a priority. I will tell you that from my experience as a lawyer, I think that deploying these cameras will have an immediate, significant and positive impact on the operations of our police officers and on their relationship with the community. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor Perkins.
Yeah, I want to say thanks to the council members at this time. It was unanimous support. You all know that you don't often give me that to be able to pursue this so quickly, so I really appreciate the support from you all. And I've already done a press conference with Mr. Griggs on thanking him for his efforts and the entire business community. This is just a perfect example of what happens when the public and private sectors of the city of Shreveport come together with a common goal. That is the way that we're going to emerge out of the current situation that we're in, and it's the only way that we emerge out of it stronger. So once again, thank you so much for the support, Mr. Griggs, for your leadership, and all the other businesses that participated in this endeavor. It means a lot to me. It's going to mean a great deal to our police officers and the citizens alike. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Perkins. Now, we've done the vote to suspend the rules. We need to vote to adopt. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's from Green and then a second from Nicholson. Let's vote. Unanimously. Now let us say thank you yet again to all the concerned citizens who have helped with this effort, and thank you very much for spearheading it, Mr. Riggs. And now we may move on with our regular agenda legislation. Ms. Ewing, will you proceed?
Resolution 66, authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for water supply and sewage disposal between the city of Shreveport, Louisiana, Pratt Paper LLC, Pratt Recycling LA LLC, and BFI Waste Services LLC. And there are two amendments. Amendment 1, it authorizes the mayor to sign the correct exhibit, Exhibit C. Exhibit A was the contract version that was previously approved by council, and it also adds Exhibit C for the mayor's execution.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Green.
Move to postpone.
Well, if I may, Councilman Green, I
What-
understand.
I want to go ahead and
Excuse me.
acknowledge that I do have a second on the motion to postpone. Now we can have discussion.
Okay.
And that was from Councilwoman Taylor, correct?
Very good. Madam Chair, I understand that the administration is amenable to a motion to withdraw this legislation. If that's correct, then I'll make that motion. If that's incorrect, then I'll support the motion to postpone.
Mayor Perkins?
Yeah, I'll speak with the city attorney in this moment. City attorney, it's true that this clause, they refuse to accept the first agreement and they have to put in the last clause, correct?
That is correct. We reached out on behalf of the administration, my office reached out on behalf of the administration to schedule a meeting to discuss some of the concerns that were raised at the last council meeting. Although those were concerns that were previously raised, we were advised via email that they were not interested in further discussion. And the version that is before the council is the version that they are willing to sign.
And we don't accept that clause as well, so we can withdraw.
Very good. I move to withdraw then as a substitute motion.
So move. Second.
Okay, it's motion from Councilman Nicholson and a second from Green to withdraw. Let's vote.
Resolution 85, authorizing the acceptance of a donation of smart thermometers to the city of Shreveport from Kinsa Inc. to be used in Shreveport, Louisiana.
So move.
It's a motion from Green,
Second.
a second from Councilman Nicholson. Any discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. For the sake of levity, I'm going to say that's two unanimous in a row. I think we just like accepting things, Mayor. That- Let's continue, Ms. Roy.
Resolution 86, a resolution accepting a donation valued at $11,044.50 from the Faith Flight Finish Foundation to the Shreveport Fire Department.
So move.
Second.
Motion from Councilman Green and a second from Councilman Bowman. Any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes unanimously. Let's continue.
Resolution 87 has already.
Have they left?
Resolution
I'm sorry.
88.
Have they left? Okay. I just got a message, a text from Morning Star Church said they wanted to donate $1,000 also, so I just want to let them know that. Thank you.
You gonna make it 1,001?
I can.
Resolution 88, authorizing a request to be made to the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources, Louisiana State Mineral and Energy Board to seek public bids for an oil and gas mineral lease involving the property located in Districts A, F, G, and described herein, and to execute the lease for certain mineral interest owned by the city of Shreveport, and to authorize the mayor to execute any and all documents related to the intent of this resolution.
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Taylor.
There was some discussion, Councilman Green, and Councilman Bowman regarding, this request. I don't know if you read the information within your email as to, some questions that I believe that Attorney Scott did answer for me, as it relates to the wells, where they will be drilling, what would be the procedure in getting this done. And so I don't know if you all have read everything as it relates to this. If not, then I would like for just to, for you to be, we can postpone it if we need to, or can we not?
I follow.
Hmm?
I
If
follow
you're
the
all
lead.
okay with them, okay.
I'm all right.
You okay with postponing, or have you read it?
I've read part of it, but you was the lead on it, so I'll agree to postpone.
Okay,
Postpone.
we can postpone this.
Motion is postponed and a second from Green.
From Councilman Green.
Let's call for the vote. And that passes, and we can continue.
Resolution 89, stating that the city of endorsement of Studio Network Shreveport One LLC to participate in the benefits of Louisiana Restoration Tax Abatement Program. And this legislation requires a public hearing, which is scheduled for the next council meeting, so we'd request that you postpone this.
So moved to postpone.
Motion from Green to postpone and a second
Second.
from Taylor. Let's vote. And that passes. We can continue.
Resolution 90, making application to the State Bond Commission for approval of the approval of the incurring of debt and issuance by the city of Shreveport, state of Louisiana, of not to exceed $35 million revenue bonds, and there is one amendment to this.
What's the amendment?
The amendment increases the maximum fixed rate per annum from 4% to 6%.
So move on the amendment.
Second.
Discussion, Madam Chair.
That's a second on the amendment. Okay, that's Green, then Bowman. Discussion, Councilman Nicholson.
Madam Chair, first I've been asked to inquire by Representative Swepko whether the general fund portion, the dedicated street and special revenue fund portion, or a combination will be utilized to pay the bond debt. And he further notes that any portion taken from street and special revenue fund will require a vote of the council to undedicate the funds. He asked that I ask that question on the record, and so I've done that and invite response from whoever can answer it.
Yeah, that's correct. This would be a first step to make an application to the Bond Commission, and then that is correct. There would need to be an amendment to the ordinance that establishes the Street Special Revenue Fund to add it to be additionally used to be able to secure the potential bonds. So that is correct.
Okay, thank you. And I will speak briefly regarding my position on this legislation. I've had conversations with the Chief Administrative Officer and with others in the administration regarding this legislation. It is true that many cities around the country are borrowing money to pay operating expenses as a consequence of the unprecedented economic impact of COVID-19. And I certainly recognize and acknowledge that reasonable minds can differ regarding the wisdom of borrowing money to pay operating expenses. I think this is not a good idea for the city of Shreveport. I'm concerned about our ability to repay these funds over time and the additional pressure that attempting to repay these funds over time will put on future years' budgets. And so for that reason, I'm going to vote against this legislation and ask my colleagues to join me in doing so. Thank you.
We
So
need to
move on
vote-
the amendment.
Second.
Okay, that was Green and then Bowman for the amendment. We need to vote on the amendment. And then I have Chief Administrative Officer Whitehorn on the board.
Before we vote.
Oh, well, we're just voting for the amendment.
Okay.
I see why your eyebrows were always up when you were chair now.
Mm-hmm.
C.A.O. Whitehorn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We also have Ms. Pamela Mobley that's here from Bond Council to speak, but I just want to say, in a normal situation, I would probably agree with Councilman Nicholson. This is not a normal situation. We take lessons learned from crisis situations. I have been involved in government in crisis situations on numerous occasions. And if we don't use the lessons learned from those previous incidents, we always fall short. And so in this situation, this is not where we are borrowing $35 million. This is simply a line of credit that we can have in our toolbox if it's needed. Many folks are posturing to get themselves in a position to where they have the wherewithal at some point, if needed, to draw down and make a use of additional cash flow. We're not asking the council to vote for us to borrow $35 million and just spend $35 million. We want to have the availability of that money if we need it. We don't know where this COVID situation is going to take us. But I can go back and we look at Hurricane Ivan. That was the precursor to Katrina and Rita. What we did and the lessons that we learned in Ivan brought us out of Katrina and Rita. Those lessons learned are still being used today. If we don't do anything, then we may fall short on this crisis situation. And so I'm asking you to support this legislation, to give us another tool in our toolbox so that we can help the city of Shreveport make it through whatever is lying out there for us. We don't know. But we also know that we have a shortfall. And if we don't position ourselves, we're going to be in trouble. And I'd like to get Ms. Mobley to come up and, as well, and speak to it, and also Ms. Jones if she needs to say anything.
Good afternoon, Pamela Mobley, RSI Group, City's Financial Advisor. I would just like to agree with Chief Whitehorn. We're just asking for the ability to have a line of credit. I think everyone should think about your own personal homes or in your personal lives. You have means, if for instance you lose a job or things of that nature, you have a place to go to get money. And what we're trying to do is just give the city an opportunity to have something set aside that if it's needed, the city would be able to use it. And I just want to remind you, when we started the process, when we first figured out the deficit was there, we reached out to 7 banks. We only had this one bank that was willing to loan the city of Shreveport money. And that's real, given that most big banks now are being very cautious with who they lend to. They're lending to people they care about, in all honesty. We reached out to the Wells Fargos, the Capital Ones, and Regions was the only one that came back with a solid proposal, willing to give you an opportunity to borrow money if needed. I can't stress it enough. We're not going to close it and pull down the $35 million. It's only there for available purposes if the city needs it. And today all we're doing is really just asking us the opportunity to continue and make application to the State Bond Commission, but in the end, that's what you need.
Is there any, would this impact our bond rating in any way, just having that open?
No, I mean, we don't have to go to rating agencies for it.
Was it Councilman Green?
Oh, I was just gonna say something after she finished.
Okay. Was it both of you?
Councilman Green
Okay,
first.
all right.
No, you go.
No. Well, Ms. Butler, thank you for being here this afternoon. What will the cost of opening this line of credit be in all?
You have your closing costs, which is, again, like if you were buying a house or, purchasing a car. And I think on 35 million, I don't have numbers right in my head, I think it's like 232,000 would be the cost for closing, but you could take that from the line.
Take that from the 30.
But that would be the only cost you have associated with the line.
Is that correct, that the cost is $232,000?
That sounds about right. And we sent that analysis to you, Councilman Nicholson. I can pull up that email.
Okay.
But yeah, that sounds right.
And then that is, your bond commission fee, the trustee has a fee, bond counsel, financial advisor, special tax counsel. I don't know if I'm forgetting anyone, but it's like all the professionals that had to be a part of getting the line in place.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, may I make one comment regarding just the
Yes,
timeline?
CFO Fields Jones, please, go ahead.
I just wanted to, from a timeline standpoint, just wanted to let the council know this next steps in this process. This allows us to go to the State Bond Commission to apply to get their approval. They've seen these types of applications recently, so it would be familiar with them. We still have to come back to the council to approve the ordinance, so there would be 2 additional pieces of legislation that council would see.
Go ahead.
Say that again. I need to process it again. Do you mind repeating?
Sure. Yeah, I was just talking about the timeline regarding this line of credit. And this step, Resolution 90, approves an application to the State Bond Commission. After this, the State Bond Commission would then review and approve or deny the application on behalf of the city. After that, the city would have to come back to council to also approve an additional step of legislation. So when basically, this is not the last time the council will see
But
this issue.
but the clock starts ticking on us paying money for the whole process once we vote on this.
No.
No.
Okay.
That's correct.
No,
That's
it-
what I wanted. Thank you. All right.
That clock would start ticking until closing, which will be sometime in September. But again, it would only be on the portion you use for closing cost. And then a quarter after that, the clock would actually officially start ticking. So the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Green?
No, you go ahead.
Councilman Bowman?
No, I just, I'm glad you, for our viewers and for some others, I'm just glad that you brought it into perspective of, you know, buying a home or a vehicle at a critical time as this. And I have to agree with Chief Whitehorn and with Councilman Nicholson on probably at another time, maybe not, but during this particular time, I'm reminded of when it was difficult for me, myself, to purchase a vehicle, or it was stressful going to different lenders trying to purchase a home at one point, and that was, it was bad. And we, you know, at that point, we jumped at the first bank that, you know, gave us an opportunity, and through time, things got better. And I just think that this just reminds me of that same time, and I wish that everyone would support, my colleagues would support this. That's it. Thank you.
Councilman Green?
So move on the ordinance as amended.
Second.
And a second from Bowman. I'll call for the vote. All right, that passes 4-1.
Resolution 91 to honor and thank Arthur G. Thompson for 35 years of leadership and service to the citizens of Shreveport, the administrations, and the city council members as the Shreveport City Council Clerk of Court. And I can read this in full if you would like.
Go ahead.
Please.
Whereas Arthur G. Thompson, a Minden, Louisiana native, was born on July 27, 1941 to Theo and Mary Glenn Clark Thompson. And whereas Arthur is married to Margaret Marks Thompson, together they have 2 children, Brian and Dion Thompson, and 1 grandchild, Finn Carter Thompson. Whereas Arthur earned his bachelor and Juris Doctor degrees from Southern University in Baton Rouge and Southern University Law Center. He joined the United States Army, where he achieved the rank of captain in the U.S. Army Judge Advocate General Corps, serving for 4 years. He served as a special court-martial judge during his final year of military service. When Arthur left the Army in 1971, he moved to Shreveport and is called Shreveport home the past 49 years. Whereas, since 1985, Arthur's full-time work has been as clerk of council for the city of Shreveport. He has been a member of the board of directors of BRF, formerly Biomedical Research Foundation, since 2005. He has served as an officer for 8 consecutive years as treasurer, vice chairman, and since 2018 as chairman. Whereas BRF's mission is to diversify and grow Shreveport's economy, Arthur's role with BRF is as a volunteer and is one of several boards and commissions on which he has served. That list includes Caddo Parish School Board, the Shreveport Caddo Parish Metropolitan Planning Commission, and in leadership positions on Strategic Action Council and Providence House boards. Whereas, on May 1st, 2019, Arthur was aptly awarded the Liberty Bell Award by the Shreveport Bar Association. The Liberty Bell was established more than 40 years ago to acknowledge outstanding community service and is presented to individuals or organizations that promote better understanding of the rule of law, encourage greater respect for law and the courts, stimulate a sense of civic responsibility, or contribute to good government in the community. Whereas former city council members, state representatives Thomas Carmody, Sam Jenkins, and Cedric Glover authored House Resolution 246 to commend Arthur upon his receipt of the Liberty Bell Award. Whereas Arthur believes you need organizations, whether they're government or nonprofits, to do things that individuals cannot do, and acknowledges that Shreveport, like other cities, faces economic challenges and believes that it's important to get off the sidelines and into the game. Whereas Arthur, whose core is helping people, is retiring after 35 years of service as the Shreveport City Council Clerk of Council, said, most of my adult life has been involved with organizations and activities that try to promote the public good. It's not so much the leadership I'm interested in, it's being involved in an organization to use whatever time and talent I have to try and help those organizations to perform a public good that would not ordinarily be performed by individuals in their individual capacity. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Shreveport in due legal regular session convened that the Shreveport City Council honors and thanks Arthur G. Thompson for 35 years of knowledge, hard work, commitment, leadership, and service to the citizens of Shreveport, the administration, and the city council members as the Shreveport City Council Clerk of Council, and wish him every measure of happiness in his retirement. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be executed in duplicate originals, with one presented to Arthur G. Thompson and the other filed in perpetuity in the office of the Clerk of Council.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Green, a second by Councilman Bowman. Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Councilman Green.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'd just like to say to Art, and I know you're upstairs listening, that I'd just like to congratulate you, and certainly you've been a model for me, and you've educated me. Even in, you never said, whenever I've asked about legislation, you never said, no, you can't do it, but you always be able to say in a nice way, without saying no, that you didn't think it was a good idea. and I really appreciate that, and you have really been my hero. My mama said that you was her son, and I just thank the Lord for you. You've been great to the city of Shreveport, and certainly again we'd like to congratulate you. And so hopefully you'll find something else other than cooking popcorn on Saturday morning. So congratulations, and as I've said, don't ever say you're gonna retire, just say you just not gonna go to work. So God bless you.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Nicholson, then Councilwoman Taylor, then Councilman Bowman.
Madam Chair, I'll add my congratulations to those of Councilman Green. It has been an absolute pleasure to have Mr. Thompson serve as Clerk of Council during my time on the City Council. I gave some thought to how I would describe Mr. Thompson to others and to the public during this meeting today, and the best that I could come up with is that he is a person of wisdom, good humor, and equanimity. He is just an exceptional human being, and really an example of quiet leadership and service that we should all strive to emulate. So Mr. Thompson, upstairs, thank you so much for your 35 years of service to the city of Shreveport. Thank you for being my friend during the time that I've served on the council, and know that if I can ever be of service to you or to your family, I'm just a phone call away. Thank you so much.
Mr. Thompson, even though my time with you on this council is short, I have enjoyed actually and learned so much from you, just watching you over the decades and what you've contributed to the city of Shreveport. I am going to miss your wisdom, because I can echo the sentiments of Councilman Green when he says that if you don't think that it's a good idea, you have that surefire way of letting you know, like, it's not a good idea. And so you are definitely going to be missed. I'm saddened that I won't get to spend additional time with you to impart on much of your wisdom, but I do have your telephone number, sir. So congratulations to you, and tell Ms. Thompson I said hello.
Just want to add my sentiments to my colleagues who've already spoke. I just need Art to know that I'm going to miss him sincerely. I knew of the name Art, or Mr. Art. Didn't know of Arthur Thompson or whatever. It was always Art. My mom would come home and she would always say, well, Art said, and I was like, well, who the heck is Art? You know, so I never knew who Art was, but from then on up until now, I just know that he was this guy of just a great wealth, and I think everyone would say that, a great wealth of knowledge. And I don't know why he's so nice to the rest of y'all and tell y'all in a nice way. He'll just tell me, you can't do that. You know, so maybe that's just the relationship that we had. But I'm truly going to miss Art, and I just want to say farewell to him, and I wish him well. Thank you.
I'll just say that I agree with everything that's been said. Mr. Art, thank you for your service to this community. Thank you for your diplomacy. Thank you for your sense of humor. Thank you for your patience. I don't think that any sitting council in the last several years would have been the same without you there to guide them and to steward the process that we all go through. And thank you for being generous with your having a generous spirit with your institutional knowledge, and not just telling us the stuff that we absolutely need to know, but also telling us some of the fun stories too, because you've seen some stuff and it's awesome. And I hope that you know that I do have spies, and I will find out what your routine is and where you're having lunch, and I will hunt you down just to say hello. Shall I call for the vote?
Can I make a comment as well?
Mayor Perkins.
I know Art is the clerk of council, but I just want to say, I heard former Councilman Tom Arsenault say that Art has been here for 35 years. I am 34 years old, so I cannot imagine, what it's like to serve an entity for 35 years. But I love Shreveport more than anybody, so I'm very, very grateful for the role that he's played in our city for 35 years. So thank you, Art. Job well done and well deserved.
Okay.
Madam Chair, what about his staff that works along with him? Can they say anything?
Would you all like to say anything?
They talk to him every day.
Yeah.
Talk to him every day.
All right, then I will go ahead and call for the vote.
To create the position of Chief Deputy Clerk of Council.
So moved.
So moved.
Second, okay, that's a motion from Councilman Bowman and a second from Councilman Green.
He know I wanted to make the motion.
He had to get the jump on you.
Thank you, sweetie.
Well, he knew you wanted to make it so you could hurry up and go home and cook.
I don't retire from cooking.
Councilwoman Taylor.
You know the young people really thought you were cooking during the meetings?
No,
They were big mad.
Yeah.
I was like, he's cooking right now, just like he's on space right now.
Yeah.
All right, that passes unanimously. Let's continue. The introduction of resolution is not to be adopted prior to August 11th.
Resolution 93, accepting a donation valued at $40,000 from Step Forward to the City of Shreveport. Resolution 94, encouraging the MPC to pass a resolution to halt the acceptance of new annexation applications for a period of 12 months.
Is there a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Green for the motion and a second from Councilman Nicholson. Let's continue to introduction of ordinances not to be adopted prior to August 11th.
Ordinance 91, amending Chapter 66, Article 3, Section 66-144 of the Code of Ordinances relative to the Health Benefits Plan correction of errors in payments. Ordinance 92, amend Chapter 50, Article 5 of the City of Shreveport, Louisiana Code of Ordinances regarding the effective date of the Smoke-Free Air Act. Ordinance 93, amending the 2020 Airport Enterprise Fund budget. Ordinance 94, Capital Projects Fund budget. 95, amending the 2020 Capital Projects Fund budget. Ordinance 96, amending the 2020 General Fund budget. Ordinance 97, amending the 2020 Grant Special Revenue Fund budget. Ordinance 98, amending the 2020 budget for the general fund, appropriating the funds authorized therein. Ordinance 99, amending the 2020 general fund budget. Ordinance 100, amending the 2020 general fund budget. Ordinance 101, amending certain portions of Chapter 38 of the Code of Ordinances, Shreveport, Louisiana, relative to housing and property standards and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Is there a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Councilman Green and a second from Councilman Bowman. And let us continue. Let's proceed to ordinances on second reading and final passage. Ms. Ewing.
Ordinance 75, amending the 2020 Community Development Special Revenue Fund budget.
So moved.
Motion from Councilman Green and a second from Councilman Bowman. I call for the vote unless there's discussion. Unanimously, let's continue.
Ordinance 76, an ordinance amending the Community Development Special Revenue Fund budget.
So moved.
Motion from Green,
Second.
second from Bowman. Any discussion? Call for the vote. That passes unanimously. Let's continue.
Ordinance amending the 2020 General Fund budget, appropriating the funds authorized therein.
So moved.
Motion from Councilman Green, second from the chair. Call for the vote. And that passes unanimously. Let's continue.
Ordinance 79, amending the 2020 Capital Projects Fund budget.
So moved.
Motion from Councilman Green, a second from Bowman. Call for the vote. That passes unanimously. Let's continue.
Ordinance 80, amending the 2020 appropriating the funds authorized therein.
So moved.
Motion from Green, second from the chair. Call for the vote. Passes 4-1. Let's continue.
Ordinance 81, adding a new section 50-3 to Chapter 50, Article 2, Division 5 of the City of Shreveport, Louisiana Code of Ordinances relative to reporting lost and stolen firearms.
So moved.
Motion from Councilman Nicholson.
Second.
Second from Green.
And question.
Discussion.
Any discussion? Let's start with Councilman Green.
Councilman, I've read it. What if, in fact, there's a person whose gun is lost or stolen, and they are not aware of it at that particular time, and a situation come about?
Councilman Green, I appreciate that question. I'll preface my answer by saying that this is an ordinance that the City of New Orleans has had in place for a number of years to good effect. The legislation provides that the obligation to report is incurred within 48 hours after discovery of the loss or theft. So if you don't know that the gun was lost or stolen, you don't have an obligation to report what you don't know.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Councilman Bowman.
I think we have to consider this. I mean, I get it to a certain degree, but I'm adding on to Councilman Green. I think we need to add that part in here so it'll be understood, because I didn't see it, and if it's in here, that's fine. I didn't see it. I just, as far as the 48 hours after the discovery of the loss or theft.
Okay.
And if it's, so tell me where.
So, if I may, Madam Chair, Councilman Bowman, subsection A of what would be section 5135.3, if this is adopted, provides that the owner of a lost or stolen firearm shall report the loss or theft to the Shreveport Police Department within 48 hours after discovery of the loss or theft. So if you, and that's a very good question that Councilman Green asked. I wouldn't want to pass a law that made a crime out of something you didn't know. But if, you know, and look, the genesis of this for me was that we have in my perception, a fairly significant problem with firearms being stolen out of unlocked cars. People will leave a handgun in in your glove box, and they leave their car unlocked. And my initial question to the city attorney was, can I make it an offense to leave a gun unlocked in your car, unsecured? Because that creates an opportunity for criminals to come steal your gun and shoot somebody. I was told, unfortunately, that the state legislature, in its wisdom, has preempted our regulation of firearms in that manner. And so I looked at New Orleans code ordinances and discovered that they had this in place. I just want us to the extent we can locally, get our arms around this problem. This seemed like a very minor obligation to impose on gun owners, and just say, somebody steals a gun out of your car, or you know, steals it, or you lose a gun, you got to tell the police so that we know that gun's on the market, so to speak. So that was my thinking.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Got it.
I think I see where you're, like, the people who are leaving their guns in the car and they forget to lock the car and they call it a break-in, but you left the door unlocked. They usually make their police report. Like, I'm not sure, who does this actually, where does the impact actually go on this?
It imposes an affirmative obligation on gun owners to make the report of a lost or stolen firearm. Right now, there is no such affirmative obligation. So, if, you know, for example, if through my negligence I left my pistol somewhere, you know, left it in my car and it was stolen, then I now have an obligation to let the police know that that happened, and to provide the serial number if I have it. Right now, I don't have any such obligation. So if I have a gun and I'm irresponsible and I leave it where somebody can steal it, then I don't ever have to tell the police that gun was stolen.
So, like,
I mean, we're having a shooting every night. I mean, I can hear it from my backyard. I'm just looking for solutions to that problem.
do you think that the people that are shooting people every night are, like, just getting guns from, like, the cosmetic counter or something because someone just left it there?
I think they're stealing them out of cars. I mean, I live on I live on Fairfield, and somebody went through my car a couple months ago. All they did is open the glove box, and I'm sure they were looking for a handgun.
And I get that. But the thing is, I see a lot of reports, like on Facebook, of people who, one of the things they had to report was the gun that was stolen out of their car. You think that this is going to cause people to actually make sure they lock their gun up and don't leave it in the car? Because they were going to report it anyway if their car got pilfered and the gun got taken out of it.
I think that all pilferings of firearms are not reported, and I think that this is a way consistent with what New Orleans has had in place for years to encourage people and require people to report stolen or lost firearms. And if we need to talk about it more, I'm happy to postpone it.
I'll entertain a motion to postpone.
Okay, I'll make that substitute motion.
Okay, motion from Nicholson, second from Bowman. Let's vote.
We voted to postpone.
To postpone. And that passes.
And I
So-
agree, don't get me wrong, anything
Yeah.
we can do for, for gun safety, gun violence. And I just wanna, maybe we can discuss and tweak this some.
Sure.
some of it.
Unintended
That's it.
consequences.
Right.
I'm the only Republican here, and I'm advocating for gun controls.
Don't.
I'm a member of the NRA. I got
Let's
my car.
continue. We've done so well today.
I got my car. I can't carry no gun.
Ordinance 82, placing a moratorium on the issuance of any occupational licenses and certificates of occupancy for payday agency, title loan agencies other than renewals.
So moved.
Motion by Nicholson, second by Bowman. Any discussion? Let's vote. Unanimously. Let's continue.
Ordinance 83, a lease of city-owned property located at 1126 Texas Avenue, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71101, in Caddo Parish to Man in Black LLC for improvements to the subject property, including creation of an entrepreneurial space and additional public parking for purposes which benefit the public. And we're gonna ask that you postpone this because of publishing requirements.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Green, second by Bowman to postpone. Call for the vote. Let's continue.
Ordinance 85, ordinance pursuant to the general bond ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $50 million of taxable water and sewer revenue refunding bonds in one or more series of the City of Shreveport, State of Louisiana, establishing certain details of such bonds as required by the General Bond Ordinance, approving and confirming the sale of such bonds, pledging the net revenues of the system to secure such bonds, prescribing the form, certain terms, and conditions of said bonds. And I believe there was a request by the administration to remove this.
Chief Whitehorn,
Postpone.
to postpone.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion to postpone by Councilman Green, a second by Nicholson. Let's vote.
In various articles of Shreveport, Louisiana Unified Development Code.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Nicholson, second by Green. Call for the vote. Passes unanimously. Let's continue.
Ordinance 53, number 20-46-C, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code by rezoning property located on the northeast corner of Line Avenue and Montrose Drive from R17 Single Family Residential District to CUC Urban Corridor Commercial District. And we have received a request by the applicant to have this withdrawn.
Madam Chair, I move to withdraw and request brief discussion.
Second.
Okay, that's a motion by Nicholson to withdraw, the second by Green, and discussion?
Madam Chair, this has been a fairly contentious issue in my district that stretches back to my predecessor's time on the council. It concerns the rezoning of what is presently residential property for commercial use by Superior Bar and Grill. Because I've received so many inquiries and expressions of concern from constituents in that area, I want to say that, as I have told many of you, I will not support this rezoning without Superior's agreeing to do a number of things that I think are necessary to make the rezoning make sense for the neighborhood and to ensure that the rezoning and the use of the property issue as a parking lot does not diminish your property value. One of those things is the construction of an 8-foot masonry wall between the parking lot and the adjacent residential property. We've not been able to come to an agreement with Superior on that, and if Superior does not agree to construct that wall, then I will encourage my colleagues to refuse any future request for a zoning change that we receive for this property. Thank you.
But was it I'm just asking a question, sorry. What did they have? They wanted to do a wood fence, am I correct?
Yes, sir, Councilman Bowman. They, and without telling all the details of the discussions we had, generally, we all made clear that they were going to have to construct a masonry fence, which will control noise and light, and will be good for the adjacent property owners' property value. And Superior indicated that because of the cost, it was not willing to do that and wanted to build a wood fence. I don't think a wood fence accomplishes what we need to accomplish there, and so if that's Superior's position, that'll be the end of this from my perspective.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. So this is a motion to withdraw.
All right.
Let's vote. I'd like to take a point of personal privilege just to say that this is a group of constituents, of citizens who have been very vocal. There's been a lot of people who visit that area from different districts that have been had some pretty heated exchanges about the rights of business to expand versus the rights of the residents to have their piece. And it's an example of the citizens being listened to pretty fervently by their representative, and all of us taking heed to that. And there's just something about equity to me when we look at things like this moving forward, that I want the people in the city to be encouraged that we can take heed of what they want for where they live, and that business should take heed and try their best to be good neighbors. across the city. Okay, thank you. Let's continue.
Ordinance 54, zoning case number 20-3-C, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code by rezoning property located on the south side of North Market Street, approximately 530 feet southeast of Devereaux Road, from R17 Single Family Residential District to R3 Multifamily District and C2 Corridor Commercial District.
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Taylor.
Mr. Clark, are we good with this one?
Yes, ma'am.
We good?
We're good.
Okay.
That's all I need to say.
I'm sorry.
Is that all I need to say?
That's all you need to say.
I love coming down from you.
Okay, then.
What
Let's
about with
do
them
this.
food trucks?
Mr. Clark, I'm starting to recognize me being a little sarcastic.
Green always talks about
We're gonna get a food truck, don't worry about that.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Taylor, second from
Second.
Green. I call for the vote.
Go get me a food truck.
We're back with trailers and some tin foil and some little styrofoam plates. And it passes unanimously. Let's continue.
Ordinance case number 20-60-C, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the City of Shreveport, UDC, by rezoning property located on the east side of Clyde Vant Parkway at the intersection of East Preston Street, Shreveport, Caddo Parish, Louisiana, from RE Residential Estate District to C3 General Commercial District.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Nicholson, second from Green. This is a pretty big deal.
It is.
Do you have any idea what's going on there, and are you comfortable with that?
I talked to the owner of the property before the vote today, and I am comfortable that this is a rezoning that's in the interest of that area. There are discussions about putting a mixed-use development on the river, and if we can find an entity willing to make the necessary investment, I think it would be really great.
All right, then. Okay. Let's vote. Passes unanimously. Let's continue.
Ordinance 88, 20-64-C, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code by rezoning property located on the west side of Clyde Vance Service Road at the intersection of Knight Street from OS Open Space District to R3 Multifamily Residential District.
So moved.
All right, that's a motion from Nicholson and a second from Green. Call for the vote. Let's continue.
Ordinance 89, zoning case 62-C, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the City of Shreveport UDC by rezoning property located on the west side of Hutchison Street and Meadow Lane intersection, Shreveport, Caddo Parish, Louisiana, from R17 Single Family Residential District to C1 Neighborhood Commercial District.
So moved.
That's a motion by Councilwoman Taylor, a second by Councilman Nicholson. Any discussion? Call for the vote. And that passes unanimously. All right, Ms. Ewing, do you have to be removed from the table today?
None that I'm aware of.
We have no property standards, ABO, MPC, ZBA appeals to consider. Are there any other appeals?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any reports from officers, boards, and committees? Is there a clerk's report?
I do have one. The council received an appeal on July 30th from Mr. Tom Arsenault on zoning case number 20-47-C, Montgomery Duplex, 1519 Cresswell.
Thank you. Mayor Perkins, do you have any additional communications?
I do not.
Does any other council member have any?
I do. I do.
Councilman Bowman and Councilman Green.
Okay. I want to take up the matter of deputy clerk. Council.
Okay, we're gonna take up the election of deputy clerk of council. You taking that up now?
Yeah.
Yes.
You nominate or I'm nominating?
Clerk of council.
I'm sorry.
Clerk of council.
Yes.
Clerk of council. So we are now looking at the election of a clerk of council.
I move for Danielle Farr Ewing's election to clerk.
Second.
What's a motion to elect Danielle Ewing as the clerk, at the second by Councilman Green? The motion was from Nicholson. Is there any discussion?
Yep.
I guess we should ask her if she wants the job. I mean, you know what kind of cow you're buying.
That's it. You know, Mr. Thompson is leaving impossibly large shoes to fill, and I'm glad the council has faith in me to step into that role, and I look forward to serving you all. And
All right. Anyone?
Nope, she
Then
just said it.
I'll call for the vote. Passes unanimously. Congratulations, our new clerk of council.
Yeah.
Councilman Green.
So move on the election of the chief deputy clerk of council.
I already did that.
I need a name.
Miss
Latonya
Latonya
Bogan.
Bogan.
Miss Latonya Bogan. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So that's a motion to elect Ms. Latonya Bogan as the chief deputy clerk of council. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Councilman Bowman. Any discussion? Ms. Bogan, you see what kind of cow you're buying? You're cool with this?
I'm cool with it.
All
She's been
right.
making this guy a long time.
You served this, how long have you worked with this group?
The council as a whole since 2004.
Wow.
Oh.
Awesome. So you've got the experience, and we all believe you have the chops, I believe. I guess we'll know when we vote, but I think it'll go favorably. I'll call for the vote, unless there's anything else to say. Councilman Bowman.
I did just want to say that I think that I do appreciate Ms. Bogan's zeal to always return phone calls or emails, and I know that I'm bad about doing it late or early or on the weekends, and I just want to say I really do appreciate that, and that's nothing against anyone else. Ms. Jackie, you do the same. And I have bothered Miss Danielle on the weekends and stuff too, also. But I did want to just say, Tanya, you're recognized, and I really, really appreciate the hard work that you've done.
Here, here. All right. Councilman Green?
Also, I'd like to congratulate both of them, and also I discovered, I didn't know that when Tanya started working for the city, she came in as a temp, just to be here for a week, 2 weeks. And 2 weeks has turned in from 204 to 2020.
Awesome. That's amazing.
And right before we vote, I did want to say that our council chair, Chairman Fleury, wanted to be here so bad today to make this vote, just this vote, these two votes here. But with the known circumstances, we know why he wasn't here, but he wanted to make sure that you all knew that he really wanted to be here in support of you two. That's it.
I'll just add that I think it's a testament to Mr. Thompson that he has led such a solid group that we're able to promote from within.
Right.
And that he's had some really low turnover. Y'all have been together. Y'all have been a solid group for a minute, and it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It is. So we expect big things from y'all, and we're pretty confident that you're going to deliver.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
They can
One
handle
more.
it.
One more thing, I didn't hear you.
They can handle it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to congratulate the entire council staff who, no matter what we ask for, what time we ask for it, how much work we put on them. Friday, I called up here, and I don't know why I was calling, but anyway, I called, and Tanya was still here at 6 o'clock. And so I was calling, and I do like people who call me at late at night. I'm like, why you still here? She said, well, if y'all gonna meet on Monday, I gotta be here. I mean, for next week, I gotta be here to get all this stuff straightened out, cause if y'all gonna meet in this chamber, I gotta have everything ready. I can't, if y'all we're not gonna be at home, so I got to be here to take care of all this stuff. So you need to get yourself off this phone so I can go on do my work. So, thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Green. Let's vote. Unanimously, congratulations, Ms. Bogan and Ms. Farr. Here's to many, many progressive years for the city. All right. Is there anything else from council members?
I do.
Go ahead, Councilman Green.
Yes, I have a letter from Miss Gloria Took. I guess that's how you pronounce her name, Tooke. Is that it? And she lives in Councilman Nicholson's district, but she sent me a letter about fireworks, and she said that she just wanted to respond to the fireworks, and she sent a copy of a letter from Mr. Lou G. Barnett about Let's Talk About Fireworks. And she said she's unable to come to the meeting. She's 86 years old, and she said something needs to be done about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, there's no executive session today. Y'all don't have anything else y'all need to say? Can we have I want to continue
I got to go
pray.
finish my cooking.
Before you go cook, can we pray for our colleague?
Yes. Yeah. Hey God, how we thank you for this day and how we thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for what we've done today, and we just give you all the glory. We ask that you would be kind enough and gracious enough to touch Brother James Flurry. We know his heart was here today, and we just ask that you would give him complete healing. You've done it before, and we ask that you would do it again. We ask that you would give him a Hezekiah blessing, that you would bless his body. And thank you for all that you've done, and we're going to praise you in advance for what you're going to do. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Councilman Bowman.
Let me go finish cooking.
I'm sorry. I apologize. This is the last thing. I just, y'all know how I am. I remember that Councilman Nicholson said he was the only Republican here. You ought to be thankful. Because we could have really did some stuff today.
I was here to make sure nobody moved to add anything to the agenda,
City
Councilman.
Council is adjourned.
You need me, let me know. Good job, man.
Thank you. I realized right before we walked in here, wait a minute, I know where y'all are on the screen. I don't know what this is gonna be like. Huh? Wait, no, we're pictures next to me.
Councilwoman?
I think that's Councilman Green's job. He's the cook, but I'm the one that brings the snacks. I had to say something. I just had to. I'm like, excuse me, it's a joke. I said, the same way I'm always joking about snacks. He jokes about cooking. Thank you. You're like, yeah, but you're someone who brings snacks with us. I'm like, whatever.
You got me on that.
Yes.